Welcome to Novel Love Hearing. We bring you hundreds of novel audiobooks covering every genre and every kind of story you can imagine. Action? We've got it. Adventure? Absolutely. Horror? Of course. Whether it's the legendary Uchiha Massacre or outrageous tales like stealing Naruto's and Sasuke's women, you'll find it here. From epic series like One Piece, Bleach, Fairy Tail, and Hunter x Hunter, to countless other adventures, our library has it all. Love novels but don't have time to read? No worries, just plug in your earbuds, sit back, and let the story take over. Good listening, and happy hearing. As a young woman, she naturally enjoyed reading romance novels, often daydreaming about the love stories within them. She was particularly drawn to tales where the heroine's destined hero descended from heaven to save her. For Kaya, who couldn't even take a leisurely walk outside, such stories held immense appeal. But Kaya knew such things were virtually impossible in reality. Yet, it had happened. Rowan, quite literally, had suddenly fallen from the sky, defeated Kuro, and saved her and everyone else. When they first met, she hadn't believed Rowan's claim that Clador was a pirate and had even yelled at him. But Rowan hadn't gotten angry. Instead, he offered her a gentle smile, and then proceeded to save them all. That warm smile. Kaya found herself thinking about Rowan constantly during her rest, his image filling her mind. Having never experienced romance before, Kaya didn't know if this feeling was the love described in her books. But this feeling, it was completely different from how she felt listening to Usopp's tall tales. Usopp. They were good friends. Kaya knew how she felt around friends. But her feelings towards Rowan, despite having only just met him, were entirely different from friendship. Wanting to know everything about Rowan, wanting to talk with him more, wanting to bring him more food when he seemed insatiable at the dinner table. Even just watching Rowan eat made Kaya smile unconsciously. This feeling, it truly resembled the love she had read about. Kaya remembered a line from one of her books: whether two people are destined to be lovers or just friends is often decided the very moment they first meet. This feeling, combined with the knowledge that Rowan was leaving tomorrow, made Kaya desperately want to talk with him more tonight. Added to that was her concern after witnessing Rowan's incredible appetite and frequent eating. She worried he might be hungry again. And so, tonight, she had come. "Let's make a promise," Rowan said softly, looking at Kaya and extending his pinky finger with a warm smile. Seeing Rowan's gentle smile, Kaya blushed faintly. She shyly hooked her pinky finger around Rowan's. The strange sensation where their fingers touched sent a flutter through Kaya's heart, making her lower her head shyly. In that moment, Kaya knew for sure. This is love. Chapter 35. The next morning, Kaya and Mary led Rowan and the others to the harbor. "Everyone, this is your ship. I've named it the Going Merry," Mary announced, pulling back the large cloth covering the vessel. Rowan looked at the ship, the source of so much heartache for countless One Piece fans back on Earth, and a smile touched his lips. The Going Merry was a caravel, featuring a triangular lateen sail on the mizzenmast and a central rudder at the stern, easily recognizable by its sheet figurehead. She was armed with 4 cannons, one facing forward at the bow, one at the stern, and one on each side. While she couldn't compare to the massive pirate galleons, compared to the tiny, makeshift boats Rowan and the crew had been using, this was, at least, a real pirate ship. Shishishi. What an awesome ship. Luffy's face lit up with pure joy the moment he saw her. This was their crew's first official pirate ship. Finally, a decent ship. "With a vessel like this, we should be able to sail the Grand Line," Nami commented happily. As a navigator, a good ship was like gaining wings. Humphrey. A faint smile touched Zoro's lips as well. Rowan had opened his eyes. Zoro knew his ambition could only be realized on the Grand Line. "Rowan, why are you looking at me like that?" Nami suddenly noticed Rowan's gaze, blinked, and felt a slight blush creep onto her cheeks. "Nothing. Just thinking your smile looks really nice right now." "Much happier," Rowan replied with a smile. Before, although Nami would smile, there was always a noticeable undercurrent of worry in her eyes. The burden of concern for her hometown, Kokoyasi village. But now, her smile seemed genuinely lighter, happier. Nami pressed her lips together upon hearing his words. She's happier now? Thinking back, ever since meeting Rowan again, specifically, after the fight with the buggy pirates in Orange Town, she had felt genuinely happy. Especially after Rowan's declaration that she could rely on him, and his consistent actions of protecting her in every situation. Nami felt a long-forgotten sense of security wash over her. Not since Belmir's death, not since she became a pirate-robbing thief and set out to earn that 100 million Bailey, had she felt this secure. It was as if she had finally found someone to lean on. Seeing this new ship, Nami instinctively started thinking from the perspective of its navigator, seemingly forgetting her earlier insistence on being only a temporary crew member. But can days like these truly last? The thought made Nami bite her lip. No matter what you're facing, remember what I told you, Nami. Rowan said softly, gently placing his hand on her shoulder, just as he had back in Orange Town. When things get tough, lean on me. Burden me as much as you need to. I'm strong, you know. Rowan looked into Nami's eyes and smiled. No matter how strong Nami acted, she was still just an 18-year-old young woman. Her hometown suffered under Arlong's tyranny. Her adoptive mother, Belmere, was murdered right before her eyes. Afterwards, for the sake of the villagers, she was forced to join the Arlong pirates, drawing sea charts while simultaneously stealing treasure to buy back her village for 100 million Bailey. She had been living this nightmare since she was only 10 years old. Thinking of this, a flicker of protectiveness softened Rowan's eyes. Nami felt her nose sting. Biting her lip, she gently rested her forehead against Rowan's hand on her shoulder. Just like in Orange Town. Watching this from nearby, Kaya felt a pang of something bittersweet, a mix of envy and something else. But then, Kaya glanced down at her own pinky finger, remembering her promise with Rowan, and smiled again. She had already received so much. She shouldn't be greedy. Let's set sail. Rowan. Nami. What are you two waiting for? Luffy suddenly yelled. Luffy. Watching Nami quickly slip away, Rowan turned towards Luffy with a very pleasant smile. I think it's time I put together a proper training plan for you. As captain, you can't be undisciplined. Rowan's smile was dazzlingly bright. Eh? Luffy had no idea what was happening. Rowan had been so lenient with him before. Only Nami, already aboard the Mary, blushed slightly. Kaya? Goodbye. Usopp yelled from the ship. Usopp. Do your best. Fulfill your dream and become a brave warrior of the sea. Kaya called back, smiling brightly and waving cheerfully at Usopp. Oh. Just watch me. Usopp puffed out his chest and yelled back. Take care, Rowan. Turning her gaze to Rowan, Kaya bit her lip, looking at him shyly. Tentative steps. This is love. Yeah. Well then, we're off, Kaya. Rowan turned back, smiled, and waved goodbye to Kaya. Rowan wasn't oblivious, he had sensed Kaya's feelings. But he had no intention of bringing her aboard. Kaya's body was simply too frail to endure the hardships of sea travel. More importantly, Kaya's gentle heart wasn't suited for the Grand Line. Even if Rowan had a devil fruit to restore her health right now, which he didn't, she still wouldn't be suited for the Grand Line. Kaya's personality wasn't built for combat. Exposing her to the Grand Line's cruelty would do her more harm than good. In the One Piece world, physical limitations, even incurable diseases, could often be overcome with devil fruits. But lacking the mindset and disposition of a true warrior, or a powerful, unwavering dream like Nami's, no external means could compensate for that. Not everyone was suited for the Grand Line. Besides, Rowan's current priority was simple: get stronger. That was the foundation upon which everything else rested. Otherwise, everything he held now was merely smoke and mirrors, fleeting illusions. You can't gain anything without sacrificing something. That was a fundamental truth, a resolve and mindset required of any truly strong individual. Besides, this wasn't truly abandonment. Once Rowan stood at the pinnacle of the world, he would naturally return and take Kaya away with him. Aboard the ship, Nami watched Kaya's wistful expression and seemed to understand something. For some reason, she felt a strange pang of jealousy in her own heart. Nami recognized this feeling wasn't normal. She pressed her lips together. She had thought her reliance on Rowan was simply that of comrades leaning on each other. But this sudden feeling told her otherwise. Setting sail. Luffy yelled loudly, perched on his special seat, the sheep figurehead at a bow. Oh. Rowan and the others raised their right hands in unison, responding with smiles. Under Nami's command, the Going Merry slowly pulled away from the harbor. Rowan looked back at Kaya watching from the shore and smiled, extending his own pinky finger. Seeing this, Kaya pressed her lips together, then slowly raised her own pinky finger. Remembering their promise from the night before in Rowan's room, Kaya smiled sweetly. I'll wait for you, Rowan. Kaya's eyes shone with unwavering brightness. This was her promise with Rowan. Decided? Kaiman, Ninjan, and Tamengi huddled together. Of course. Let's go. We have to carry on the captain's greatness. Kaiman declared seriously. Ninjan looked back towards Syrup Village. Pirates are coming. Tamengi, Ninjan, and Kaiman yelled in unison as they began running through the village streets. In the distance, the Going Merry slowly sailed towards the horizon. Only on a shore, Kaya remained, gazing after the ship, unwilling to leave for a long, long time, Chapter 36, East Blue, somewhere on the sea. A pirate ship sailed onward. It was a caravel with a triangular lateen sail on the mizzenmast and a central rudder, easily identifiable by its sheep figurehead. Most conspicuously, the mainsail proudly displayed a Jolly Roger featuring a skull wearing a straw hat. After acquiring an official ship, Usopp, with his artistic talent, had designed the Straw Hat Pirates flag. Seeing their official Jolly Roger, Luffy was overjoyed. Perched on his special seat, the sheep figurehead at the bow, he frequently turned around just to admire their crew's flag. Meanwhile, Rowan, leveraging his now enhanced physique, had put Luffy and Zoro through a grueling training regimen for 2 days. Now, he methodically continued enhancing his conqueror's haki and physique using Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, and Superhuman Physique, Deep Purple. With a proper ship came proper storage facilities, allowing them to stock meat, unlike their previous voyage sustained solely on apples. Superhuman Physique, Deep Purple, could now continuously function, bolstering Rowan's physical development. Oh. Ha. Having just finished swimming, Rowan now reclined on a deck chair inside the second-floor cabin, absorbing the sea's energy from the air. Even inside the cabin while sailing, the ubiquitous energy of the sea could be felt, allowing him to digest the disposition gained via Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, and continuously strengthen his conqueror's haki. His body was also digesting food, fueling his physical enhancement through Superhuman Physique, Deep Purple. Nearby, Nami sat at a table, drawing charts. She occasionally glanced over at Rowan, smiled faintly, then returned her focus to her work. Rowan, sometimes opening his eyes, would look at Nami, and then at the specially prepared drink she had placed beside him, a slight smile touching his lips. The drink was perfectly refreshing after a swim. A beautiful woman nearby, constantly growing stronger. Life couldn't get much better than this. Whoosh. Boom. Suddenly, a loud explosion interrupted the peaceful moment. What are those 2 idiots up to now? Zoro grumbled, waking up on deck and rubbing his head. These past few days, Zoro's training regimen had been demonic. He already pushed himself hard, but after sparring with Rowan and Luffy a few days prior, Zoro was shocked to discover Rowan's physique was significantly stronger than his own. Consequently, Zoro had intensified his already demanding training schedule even further, sleeping only 3 hours a day and spending nearly every other waking moment training. He had been resting his eyes just now, recovering from the muscle aches and strains of his workout. Shishishi. We were testing the cannon. Usopp's a really good shot. Hit that rock on the first try. From now on, he's our crew's sniper. Luffy announced cheerfully, entering the cabin with Usopp. Oh yeah. We've got a sniper now. But before we enter the Grand Line, there's still one more position we need, right? Luffy added with a grin. True. We do have this nice kitchen now. If you're willing to pay, I could handle it. Nami chimed in, glancing around the galley with a smile. Exactly. That position is absolutely essential. Zoro agreed with a grin. A cook, a vital role on any pirate ship. Nutritious food was paramount during long, arduous sea voyages, and delicious meals could soothe the crew's fatigue. Furthermore, for training purposes, having a cook plan meals could significantly enhance the quality and results of their workouts. See? Everyone agrees this role is needed on every pirate ship. Luffy declared, holding up a finger with a wide grin. A musician. Luffy exclaimed, his eyes sparkling with longing. Are you an idiot? Even Zoro couldn't help but yell this time. What do you think sailing is, you moron? Rowan, say something to this idiot. Nami transformed into her sharp-toothed angry mode. But pirates are supposed to sing, right? Luffy argued stubbornly. A cook and a musician. Why not have both? Rowan suggested with a smile, seeing everyone looking at him. After acquiring a ship, what Rowan needed most now was a cook. Only with a cook, especially a skilled one, could he fully utilize the potential of his superhuman physique, Deep Purple, trait. The One Piece world definitely had concepts like nutritional enhancement through food. The Akama recipes from Kamabaka Kingdom, for instance, were known to greatly benefit physical training and development. Combined with Rowan's superhuman physique, Deep Purple, the effects would be even greater. However, Rowan had no desire to visit that island to obtain those recipes. Fortunately, there was a perfect candidate elsewhere. Sanji, the brave soul who had the audacity to infiltrate Kamabaka Kingdom in the original story. Most importantly, who didn't love delicious food. Rowan had been curious about Sanji's cooking skills since his time on Earth. Now that he was in this world, he naturally wanted to taste them firsthand. Although Luffy was currently obsessed with finding a musician and hadn't realized the importance of a cook yet. The best thing about being part of the protagonist crew was that often, just when you needed something, like a pillow when sleepy, someone conveniently delivered it. Soon, someone's first-hand experience would vividly demonstrate to Luffy the importance of a cook while sailing. Crucially, along with that lesson would come news of that man, one of the absolute pinnacles of combat strength in the One Piece world. News of the world's greatest swordsman, Dracula Hawkeye's Mihawk. A faint smile played on Rowan's lips. Crash. Get out here, pirates. A loud shout echoed, accompanied by the sound of the ship's water barrel being smashed. Who are you? As captain, Luffy stepped out of the second-floor cabin first. Who cares who I am? You nameless pirates. Trying to take my partner's life, were you? The newcomer didn't waste time on words, immediately launching an attack at Luffy. Only to be instantly subdued by Luffy's powers and slammed onto the deck. What the heck? Luffy was still completely bewildered by the situation. Hey! Aren't you Johnny? Hearing the familiar voice, Zoro emerged from the cabin. He stared wide-eyed upon recognizing the man lying on the deck. Be big bro Zoro? Johnny stared back, equally wide-eyed, then scrambled to his feet. Big bro Zoro. What are you doing on this nameless pirate ship? Johnny exclaimed in utter astonishment. I stopped being a bounty hunter a while ago. This is Johnny, he used to work with me back when I was hunting bounties. Zoro explained. What do you mean, nameless pirate ship? You jerk. Luffy immediately took offense. If Zoro didn't know this guy, Luffy would have definitely given him another beating. Looks like our crew's reputation needs some more work. Rowan commented, stepping out of the cabin and looking at Johnny, a slight smirk on his face. SK Sky Sovereign Rowan? The moment Johnny saw Rowan, he gasped out loud in shock. Chapter 37, SK Sky Sovereign Rowan? Johnny stammered, cold sweat beading on his forehead as he stared at Rowan. Unlike Zoro, who set out to become the world's greatest swordsman but temporarily took up bounty hunting due to lack of funds, Johnny and his partner Yosaku were professional bounty hunters. And for bounty hunters, gathering intelligence was paramount. At the very least, they needed to know every pirate's bounty and gather intel on their combat strength to choose targets they could defeat for a good reward. Newspapers of all kinds were a primary source of pirate intelligence for bounty hunters. As the world's largest newspaper, the World Economic News Agency's publication was essential reading. Although most of its reports focused on the Grand Line, with little coverage given to the East Blue, often called the weakest sea, reading it was still valuable for broadening one's knowledge. But recently, the World Economic News Agency had dedicated an entire section to the normally overlooked East Blue. Sky Sovereign Rowan. That was the name of the super rookie featured in that report. The article described him with the incredible phrase, "A new king is about to be born upon the seas." Such an exaggerated assessment naturally left a deep impression on Johnny. Sky Sovereign? It's huge. Your title is so awesome, Rowan. Usopp exclaimed, looking at Rowan with admiration. Usopp's father, Usopp, had left to become a pirate long ago, and his mother had passed away from illness during his childhood, leaving the family with little savings. Plus, Usopp loved inventing things, which required money. The World Economic News Agency newspaper wasn't cheap, so Usopp couldn't afford every issue. He bought one occasionally to broaden his horizons and, admittedly, to gather better material for his tall tales. He happened to miss the issue featuring Rowan. And he's even more famous than Luffy, the captain. Nami added with a smile. For some reason, Nami felt happy hearing about Rowan's fame. After the incident with Kaya, Nami was slowly starting to understand why. She glanced at Rowan, a faint blush coloring her cheeks, her gaze almost tentative. Actually, before entering the Grand Line, Zoro, known as Pirate Hunter, was also much more famous than Luffy. I'll definitely become famous. And get a super high bounty. Luffy declared, fists clenched, full of fighting spirit, not jealous of his comrade in the slightest. Captain? Johnny turned his head, looking blankly at Luffy. What? Don't I look like a captain? Luffy puffed out his chest, hands on his hips. Nami, Zoro, and Usopp collectively shook their heads. An idiot prioritizing a musician over a cook right before entering the Grand Line? How does that resemble a captain at all? Luffy immediately went to sulk in a corner, drawing circles on the deck. Unbelievable. That Sky Sovereign Rowan and Big Bro Zoro actually chose you as their captain. Johnny muttered, his perception of Luffy completely overturned. By the way, where's Yosaku? Why isn't he with you? Zoro asked, looking around, finding it strange. Johnny and Yosaku were partners, always inseparable. Yosaku. Johnny's expression instantly turned grief-stricken. What happened? Seeing Zoro's concerned expression, Johnny carefully pulled Yosaku up from the small boat tethered alongside. Yosaku's face was deathly pale, looking like he was on the verge of dying. Yosaku was perfectly fine just a few days ago. Then suddenly he turned pale white and passed out for days. I have no idea why. His teeth are falling out, old wounds are bleeding again. I don't know what to do anymore. Johnny cried, looking at his partner's dire condition. I took him to that nearby rock island to rest, and then a cannonball suddenly shot over from this ship. Johnny started sobbing. Luffy and Usopp's jaws dropped. Oh crap. That was the cannonball they fired. Sorry. Luffy and Usopp immediately bowed deeply at a 90-degree angle. If apologies actually worked, we wouldn't need the Marines. Johnny wailed as Yosaku coughed up more blood. Right, partner? Big bro Zoro, he's not gonna die, is he? Johnny shook Yosaku frantically. You'll actually kill him if you keep shaking him like that. Rowan and Nami interjected, walking over. Relax. It's just common scurvy. Luffy, I told you when I stalked those apples, didn't I? Sailing on the sea without enough vitamins. Well, you wouldn't understand anyway. Basically, if you don't eat enough fruits and vegetables, you get this disease. Rowan explained, looking at Yosaku. Eh? Did you say that? Luffy tilted his head, trying to recall, but his mind drew a complete blank. Big bro Rowan. Since you know what disease this is, you must know how to cure it, right? Johnny immediately looked at Rowan, tears streaming down his face. He just needs some fresh fruit. Luffy, Usopp, go get those oranges. Rowan instructed. Aye. Luffy and Usopp immediately complied, grabbing a pile of oranges and desperately stuffing them into Yosaku's mouth. A short while later, Yosaku miraculously bounced back to his feet, singing and dancing with Johnny again. But their joy was short-lived. Yosaku quickly collapsed again. Although Yosaku, being a native of the One Piece world, had decent recovery abilities, he didn't possess a trait like superhuman physique, Deep Purple. Instant full recovery was impossible, and all that jumping around just aggravated his condition. Fortunately, with a few days of rest, he would make a full recovery. Johnny finally breathed a sigh of relief. Let this be a lesson, Luffy. Never underestimate sailing. Nami said sternly, writing in her logbook while glancing at Luffy. Luffy wanting a musician before a cook was simply idiotic from a practical sailing perspective. I didn't realize there were dangers like this during voyages. Zoro commented thoughtfully. Although Rowan had mentioned the disease when preparing the apples, Zoro hadn't paid much attention at the time. Seeing Yosaku's condition firsthand was a significant lesson. He had assumed just eating enough to feel full was sufficient while sailing. Meaning we have to consider nutritional balance with the limited ingredients on board during long journeys? Usopp mused, understanding dawning. Think about it. Isn't that an essential skill for sailing? Nami pointed out. An essential skill? Luffy, gnawing on a piece of bread, suddenly yelled. Alright. Then it has to be a cook. Let's go find a cook. Luffy stood up, looking determinedly at Rowan and the others. That is the most needed role on our ship before we head into the Grand Line. Rowan smiled. No amount of talking beats first-hand experience for Luffy and Zoro. Growth wasn't just about power, mental maturity was also required to become truly strong. Luffy and Zoro. Their future strength was crucial for Rowan's plans to plunder high-tier traits and utilize faction fortune, Apex Gold, by taking down iconic pirate faction figures. Especially when eventually challenging the four emperors, their developed combat power would be invaluable to Rowan. An emperor's crew represented a complete force. The more numerous and powerful allies one had, the better. Facing a group assault alone could overwhelm even a peak emperor-level fighter. Kaido's defeat after being worn down by multiple opponents on Onigashima was the perfect cautionary tale. Rowan wouldn't make that mistake. Speaking of cooks, I know just the place. Johnny grinned. Alright. That's where we're going. Where is it? Luffy beamed excitedly. It's close to the entrance of the Grand Line. And there are rumors circulating there about that hawk-eyed man Big Bro Zoro has been looking for. Johnny added. Johnny's words made Zoro's eyes sharpen instantly. And Rowan's lips curved into a knowing smile. Course set. North-northeast. To the Sea Restaurant, Verity. Chapter 38, The Sea Restaurant, Verity. An ocean-going restaurant located in the Sambas region of the East Blue. Its exterior resembled a giant ship, with fish-shaped figureheads at both ends. Many people journeyed here specifically to savor the delicious cuisine prepared by the owner and head chef, Zeph. Even high-ranking marine officials were known to dine here. After their voyage, this distinctive floating restaurant finally came into view for Rowan and the crew. It's huge. What a huge ship! Luffy exclaimed, drooling as he stared at the unique design of the Verity. Just looking at it whetted his appetite. Beep. Beep. Just as they prepared to approach the Verity, a horn blared. Marines? A marine warship? A vessel, much larger than the Mary, rapidly closed in on them, the prominent marine insignia clearly visible on its mainsail. The moment he saw the warship, Usopp broke out in a cold sweat and cried out in alarm. TCH. Annoying guys showed up. Zoro muttered, sensing trouble. Rowan was observing the approaching warship with interest, then noticed Nami hiding behind him, amused. Force of habit. Nami murmured, realizing Rowan was looking at her. She blinked, her cheeks flushing slightly. Ever since Orange Town, whenever danger arose, Rowan had consistently protected her. Nami had unconsciously grown accustomed to seeking shelter behind him. The moment she saw the marine warship, her instincts kicked in, and she automatically moved behind Rowan. But she had to admit, she felt incredibly safe behind him. Nami watched as Rowan subtly shifted his stance, positioning himself to shield her even better, and pressed her lips together. Safety. For Nami, who had witnessed Belmir's murder firsthand and whose hometown, Kokoyasi village, was still suffering under Arlong's tyranny, that feeling was unbelievably precious. Never seen that Jolly Roger before. A voice called out from the deck of the marine warship. A man wearing a white patterned suit, with pink hair, dark skin, and iron-ringed gauntlets, appeared before Rowan and the crew. He squinted at the Straw Hat Pirates flag. I am Marine Lieutenant Double Iron Fist Fullbody. Who's the captain? State your name. Fullbody demanded, raising his fist. I'm Luffy. Luffy stepped forward and yelled back. I'm Usopp. Usopp chimed in, joining the commotion. I'm the captain. We just decided on the flag. Luffy glanced at Usopp, then yelled again, asserting his captaincy. I drew the flag. Usopp added proudly. Rowan watched Luffy and Usopp's antics with a strange smile. He wondered if Luffy did it intentionally. When facing obviously weak opponents, Luffy simply introduced himself as Luffy. But against stronger foes, his introduction became, I am Monkey D. Luffy. Luffy? Never heard of you. Just some small timer. Fullbody sneered dismissively. Like Morgan before him, Fullbody was a marine who believed titles were everything. A nameless pirate crew. What an eyesore. Maybe I should just sink you. Fullbody's gaze swept over the rest of the crew on the Mary. Then, his eyes landed on Rowan, standing not far behind Luffy. Fullbody rubbed his eyes, then stared intently at Rowan's face, widening his eyes. Cold sweat began to form on his brow. SK Sky Sovereign Rowan? Fullbody gasped, certain his eyes weren't deceiving him. A small fry like you dares call himself Iron Fist? Same title as the marine hero? Rowan asked, looking at Fullbody with amusement. Taking the same epithet as the marine hero, Monkey D. Garp, and parading it around Garp's home sea, the East Blue. This lieutenant certainly has guts. It's huge. Your reputation is amazing, Rowan. Even Marines from headquarters know you. Usopp exclaimed, looking at Rowan with reverence. As expected of a real pirate. Hearing Rowan's mockery, Fullbody's eye twitched, but he didn't dare retort. He only dared use the Iron Fist title here in the East Blue, the weakest sea, to stroke his own ego. Back at Marine headquarters, he was just an insignificant lieutenant with no title whatsoever. But this man before him, Sky Sovereign Rowan, was entirely different. A user of Conqueror's Haki. A super rookie who had burst onto the scene. Normally, a lieutenant like Fullbody wouldn't know much about the power of Conqueror's Haki. After all, since the formation of the three great powers balance between the emperors, marines, and warlords, major clashes between Conqueror's Haki users had become rare. But the World Economic News Agency's report on Sky Sovereign Rowan had caused quite a stir even at Marine HQ. Although Fullbody was unimportant at HQ, being stationed there had its advantages, access to far more information than available elsewhere. The disposition of a king. Anyone who awakened it was destined to become a renowned powerhouse on the seas. Rumor had it that even the three esteemed marine admirals didn't possess this power. Rumor also had it that anyone who awakened this power was immediately marked for grooming as a future marine admiral. At worst, they become an admiral candidate. Awakening Conqueror's Haki at such a young age. Even though this man arrogantly called himself Sky Sovereign, no one within the Marines who understood the true value of Conqueror's Haki dismissed him as merely overconfident. Arrogance was expected from someone possessing the disposition of a king. Word was, HQ was already discussing what bounty to place on this man's head. Some whispered it would be an unimaginably terrifying number. These rumors filled Fullbody with intense envy. If he could awaken Conqueror's Haki, he wouldn't need to borrow the Iron Fist title just to feel important in the weakest sea. A Marine Admiral. Imagine the glory. The power. Why did someone awaken such incredible power? Only to become a damn pirate? But if I could capture this guy, maybe I could skyrocket through the ranks? Fullbody sometimes entertained such fantasies. And now, he had actually encountered this super rookie. Looking at Rowan's faintly mocking smile, Full body felt countless beads of cold sweat form. This man, just standing there, radiated terrifying strength. Now that he was face to face with him, Full body realized he didn't even have the courage to attack. He remembered now. Damn that World Economic News Agency. In their report, they had only emphasized the surname Monkey and the mysterious initial D for the kid named Luffy, heavily bolding them. Full body, his attention consumed by the name Sky Sovereign Rowan, had completely forgotten the name Luffy, failing to recognize the kid's identity immediately. What now? Didn't he just say he was going to sink the pirate ship Sky Sovereign Rowan was on? More cold sweat dripped down Full body's forehead. Marine hero? Who's that? Luffy suddenly tilted his head, the title sounding vaguely familiar. You don't even know the marine hero? Garp the hero. That's common knowledge across the seas. Nami exclaimed, exasperated with Luffy. At the world government level, the initial D was an absolute taboo. Compounded by the existence of Garp's son, the revolutionary leader Monkey D. Dragon. Official propaganda handled Garp similarly to how Goldie Roger was changed to Gold Roger. Garp was publicly known only as Garp the Hero or Garp the Fist. The full name Monkey D. Garp was known only to a select few across the seas. Oh. You mean Gramps? Hearing the name, Luffy shivered, unpleasant memories flooding back. Gramps? Nami, Usopp, and even Zoro stared at Luffy with expressions of utter disbelief. Johnny and Yozaka hugged each other tightly, gaping at Luffy in shock. Wait. My brain feels scrambled. Nami clutched her head, shaking it slightly. Garp the Hero is your grandfather? Your actual grandfather? Nami asked Luffy incredulously. Yeah. Gramps is super scary. Luffy recalled Garp's training methods, a flicker of genuine fear crossing even his normally carefree eyes. Rowan watched Luffy, amused. This family truly is full of extraordinary individuals. Garp's son, Monkey D. Dragon, became the leader of the Revolutionary Army. And Luffy, Garp, wanting him to become a Marine, subjected him to ridiculously harsh training. Throwing him into bottomless ravines, abandoning him in jungles teeming with ferocious beasts at night, tying him to balloons and letting him float away. All while yelling at Luffy to become a strong Marine. It was no wonder young Luffy developed such a deep-seated psychological aversion to the idea. Even if Luffy hadn't met Shanks, becoming a Marine under those circumstances would have been impossible. Regardless of who Luffy's grandfather is, he's a pirate now. The man who will become king of the pirates. Rowan interjected, summarizing the situation for the still-stunned crew. That's right. Shishishi. Luffy instantly snapped out of his Garp-induced funk, grinning broadly and yelling, bond increased. Trait equipping progress increased. Handling Luffy. Easy peasy. Rowan smirked, then turned his attention back to the now slack-jawed Full body on the warship opposite them. I hear. You were planning to sink our pirate ship? Rowan asked, smiling faintly at Full body's stunned expression. Full body was now completely frozen, utterly dumbfounded. Chapter 39, Full body's expression was a spectacular mess of emotions as he stared dumbfounded at the ship opposite him. Did his ears deceive him? That brat named Luffy was Vice Admiral Garp's grandson? But then, meeting Rowan's steady gaze snapped him back to reality. Cold sweat beaded densely on his forehead. Full body knew with certainty, he hadn't misheard. What in the unholy hell? He had planned to bring the woman accompanying him to the famous sea restaurant Barity, impress her with his wealth and charm. Encountering a pirate crew, Full body had intended to show off his strength too. But the pirate crew he encountered turned out to be the very one harboring Sky Sovereign Rowan. And their unremarkable captain was Vice Admiral Garp's grandson? Was this really the East Blue, the weakest sea? What kind of cruel cosmic joke was this? Eh? Why are you sweating so much? Are you afraid of a bunch of pirates? Unfortunately, the clueless woman beside him chose that moment to speak up. Full body glanced at Rowan's teasing expression on the opposite ship and grit his teeth. Oh, of course I'm not scared. It's just. Before such a fine dinner, getting things too bloody would ruin the appetite, wouldn't it? Full body forced himself to say, trying to save face. He had his pride, after all. No matter what, he was still a Marine headquarters lieutenant. As long as he didn't provoke them further, Rowan probably wouldn't make things too difficult for him. Right? Probably. Oh? Bloody? Planning to use your iron fist? Rowan asked, smiling as he glanced at the iron-ringed gauntlets on Full body's fists. Seeing those things reminded Rowan of the knuckle dusters some teenagers like to play with back on Earth. Using something like that as a weapon in the One Piece world and calling yourself Iron Fist. It was utterly comical. Seeing Rowan looking like he might actually make a move, Full body's sweat started pouring down like a waterfall, completely unstoppable. This guy wasn't giving him any face at all. But there was nothing he could do. Fight a monster rumored at HQ to be future Admiral material if he were a Marine? He wouldn't even know how he died. Besides, he had felt the man's terrifying presence firsthand. Just standing there, Fullbody lacked the courage even to throw a punch. If he got killed here, it would be for nothing. And that damn brat Luffy was Vice Admiral Garp's grandson. Fullbody's forehead was drenched in cold sweat. Wait. Hold on. Today's meal is all on me. Fullbody threw up his hands, blurting out in panic. Face? Who cares about face when your life is on the line? Free meal. Hearing this, Nami, still hiding slightly behind Rowan, instantly brightened. Really? Wow, you're actually a good guy. Luffy beamed, completely won over. Hey. In the eyes of normal people, we're the bad guys, and the Marines are the good guys. Usopp couldn't help but point out. Oh yeah. That's right. Luffy yelled, clutching his head. Well then. We won't hold back. Rowan chuckled, looking at Nami's sparkling eyes. Whenever something was free, Nami's enthusiasm skyrocketed. But Rowan didn't blame her. Since she was 10, she had carried the heavy burden of earning 100 million Bailey to buy back her hometown. To Nami, money represented hope for her village. Years of this struggle had ingrained the habit deeply. Compared to Nami's excitement, dealing with a small fry like Fullbody wasn't even worth unleashing Conqueror's hockey for Rowan. Rowan had already checked Fullbody's traits earlier, not a single one above purple tier. Completely worthless to him. Nami stuck out her tongue playfully at Rowan, looking utterly adorable. Rowan prioritizing her mood like this warmed Nami's heart. Oh of course. My treat. Fullbody stammered, then quickly grabbed his companion and scrambled onto a small boat, rowing hastily towards the Verity. Consider it the cost of escaping disaster. Luckily, their crew isn't that big. It shouldn't cost too much. Fullbody thought desperately. Let's head over to free food. Free food. Nami cheered cutely, pumping her fist. Shishishi. Someone's treating. Let's hurry up and eat. Luffy grinned, already drooling. Gamu gamu no. Just as Nami was about to instruct Zoro and the others to dock the ship, the impatient Luffy grabbed onto the Going Merry's sheep figurehead, stretching his arms back dramatically. Rocket. Luffy launched himself directly towards the Verity. Boom. With a tremendous crash, Luffy blasted a large hole straight through the side of the Verity. That idiot. Zoro sighed, covering his face. Forget Luffy, he'll figure things out himself. Let's go order. Rowan, already accustomed to Luffy's antics, even without the excuse of dodging cannon fire this time, Luffy's impatience for food still led to property damage, chuckled and turned to Nami. May I have the pleasure of dining with you, my beautiful lady? Rowan extended his right hand gracefully. Nami felt a momentary sense of déjà vu, time seeming to rewind to her first encounter with Rowan. On the luxury liner that day, Rowan had extended his hand just like this, elegantly inviting her to dance. Of course. Nami replied, smiling sweetly as she placed her slender hand in Rowan's right hand. But the feeling is completely different now. Feeling the warmth of Rowan's palm against hers, Nami pressed her lips together thoughtfully. Welcome, esteemed guests. Do you have a reservation? As they entered the restaurant, a chef wearing a black uniform with a pink scarf around his neck approached them, a wide, exaggerated smile plastered on his face. Our meal. That gentleman is paying. Rowan gestured towards the already seated Fullbody. Honored guests. Right this way. Seeing the Marine lieutenant didn't deny it, and even seemed somewhat afraid of this group, Patty the chef instantly smelled a big spender. His smile widened until his face nearly cramped. The menu. Rowan said, taking a seat and glancing at the menu presented. Yes. What would you like to order? Everything here is guaranteed delicious. Patty beamed. We'll start with 5 full menu. Rowan stated calmly. PFT. Fullbody, who had just taken a sip of water, sprayed it everywhere upon hearing Rowan. F5 full menu? Patty blinked, momentarily stunned. Ordering the whole menu? He'd never encountered that before. And the prices here were quite steep. What are you waiting for? Go get the food. Do you think Marine Headquarters Lieutenant, Iron Fist Fullbody, would shortchange you? Rowan directed his gaze pointedly at Fullbody. Fullbody felt like his heart was bleeding money, but he didn't dare utter a word of protest. He could feel a terrifying pressure locking onto him. Escape was impossible. Is this the power of Sky Sovereign Rowan? So terrifying. How could such a monster appear in the East Blue? And why did he have the misfortune of running into him? While his heart bled, Fullbody resigned himself to his fate. A massive bill was inevitable. At the very least, he had to successfully impress the woman he brought here to make it somewhat worthwhile. Fullbody forced a smile. Just then, a man with blonde hair, wearing a black suit, and most distinctively, sporting curly eyebrows, approached Fullbody's table carrying a bottle of red wine. It was, unmistakably, Sanji, the future cook of the Straw Hat Pirates from the original story. Check traits. Seeing Sanji, Rowan prompted inwardly. Chapter 40, Sanji traits, black leg style, deep purple, modified exoskeleton, adaptive, unawakened. Black leg style, deep purple, as a chef, hands are considered sacred tools, so combat relies primarily on powerful kicking techniques developed through rigorous training. Modified exoskeleton, adaptive, unawakened, a result of the Vinsmoke family's lineage factor modifications. Upon awakening the exoskeleton, the body becomes incredibly durable, possessing superhuman resilience, allowing even broken bones to heal rapidly. Physical hardness becomes astonishing, rendering the body impervious to blades and bullets. Simultaneously gains modified strength, significantly boosting overall power. Sanji, despite being one of the Straw Hat crew's main 3 combatants in the original story, wasn't strictly a fighter by trade. His primary role was chef. Zoro, in contrast, was purely a combatant. And truthfully, before awakening his exoskeleton, Sanji's combat strength had fallen slightly behind Zoro's. However, after awakening the exoskeleton, Sanji's power received a massive boost. The exoskeleton could even withstand a direct sword strike from Queen the Plague, one of the Beast's pirates' all-stars, causing Queen's blade to shatter. Its defensive and offensive capabilities surpassed even Sanji's own armament haki. Even if his bones were broken, he could instantly reset them just by striking his own body. After awakening his exoskeleton, Sanji defeated Queen the Plague, reaching the level of a 4 Emperor's commander. The strength of the awakened exoskeleton depended on Sanji's own power at the time of awakening, hence its adaptive status while unawakened. When Sanji eventually awakens it, the trait tier displayed will reflect his strength at that moment. Furthermore, this modified exoskeleton trait encompassed all the Vinsmoke lineage factor modifications. Vinsmoke Judge subjected his children to 4 main modifications: strength, resilience, exoskeleton, and cold heart. Sanji's modifications, however, only retained the first 3, he didn't lose his emotions. Strength included comprehensive enhancements to both power and speed. Once this modified exoskeleton trait awakened, Sanji would gain not only the exoskeleton but also massive boosts to his strength, speed, and resilience. Crucially, even the unawakened modified exoskeleton trait could be equipped by Rowan. And the system could potentially force its awakening, similar to how Rowan's own Conqueror's haki was awakened. Rowan's eyes lit up. The power displayed by the awakened exoskeleton surpassed even Sanji's own armament haki. Combined with my future physical potential ceiling. This exoskeleton. My future physique might rival Big Mom's iron balloon body. Maybe even surpass it. And by awakening the modified exoskeleton trait, Rowan could also gain the embedded strength and resilience modifications from Vinsmoke Judge's experiments. Based on its performance in the original story, this trait was definitely gold tier. Its exact sub-level. He'd find out once Sanji joined the crew and the equipping process completed. Sanji hadn't yet learned nutritional enhancement cooking techniques, so his culinary skills, being purely a life skill at this point, didn't manifest as a trait. Not that Rowan planned to become a chef anyway, he had no intention of equipping Sanji's cooking skills. He just wanted to taste Sanji's cooking. Meanwhile, Fullbody, trying to show off in front of his female companion by picking on Sanji, had started a conflict. After smashing the dishes on the table and arrogantly declaring he'd pay for everything, Fullbody had crossed Sanji's line. On the sea. Can money fill your stomach? Sanji snarled, his face contorted with fury. He grabbed Fullbody's face and lifted him bodily off the ground. Having experienced starvation firsthand, Sanji knew its desperation all too well. Crash. Just then, the restaurant ceiling suddenly fractured. An older man with a peg leg and a tall chef's hat fell through, along with Luffy. My ceiling. It's all your fault, brat. Zeph, the owner of the Barati, glared furiously at Luffy. This damn kid had not only smashed a hole in his kitchen and nearly crushed him, but now he destroyed the dining room ceiling too. It was you who broke it, old man. Luffy yelled back indignantly. Treating customers like this? I'll contact the government. I'll have this place shut down. Fullbody shrieked, his face twisted with rage. Then I'll just deal with you right here. Sanji's expression turned dark as he advanced towards Fullbody. Boss. Stop Sanji before he causes more trouble. The other chefs rushed forward, trying to restrain Sanji while yelling at Zeph. Hey. Sanji. Causing trouble again? Zeph turned, glaring at Sanji. Shut up, old geezer. Sanji retorted, calming down slightly upon seeing Zeph, though his words remained disrespectful. Who are you talking to? Trying to destroy my restaurant? Zeph roared, striking Sanji hard across the face with his peg leg. Humphrey. Full Body smirked, feeling vindicated. But then, wham! And you. Get the hell out of here. Zeph's peg leg struck again, knocking Full Body to the ground. What the? Even the owners like this? Are these guys really chefs? They act more like pirates. Full Body stammered from the floor, cold sweat dripping down his face. Hey. Before you leave. Remember to settle your bill. A calm voice added, making Full Body break out in even more cold sweat. What kind of rotten luck did I have today? Rowan? You guys are here? Luffy looked over at Rowan and the others, overjoyed. Pay my bill too, okay? I smashed up the kitchen and hit the old man. He says I have to work here for a year to pay it off. Luffy ran over to Rowan, pleading with clasped hands. Wasn't that entirely your own fault, you idiot? Nami snapped, instantly defensive when money was involved. The commotion attracted Sanji's attention. The moment he saw Nami, he instantly dashed over. Ah! Fate must have brought us together, my beautiful mademoiselle. Sanji produced a rose seemingly from nowhere, but then froze. The beautiful lady before him had linked her arm with the handsome man standing beside her, smiling sweetly up at him. Crack. Sanji felt his heart shatter. He was heartbroken. Again. Hey, you okay? Usopp asked, seeing Sanji's utterly devastated expression. I'm fine. I just regret not meeting this lady sooner. You better treat this beautiful lady right. Sanji declared, tears streaming down his face as he looked earnestly at Rowan. He might be a flirt, but under Zeph's tutelage, Sanji held absolute respect for women. Since this beautiful lady had clearly chosen this man, all he could do was offer his blessing. Causing a scene wouldn't be manly. Of course, I'll treat her well. Right, Nami? Rowan smiled, looking down at Nami who was clinging to his arm. Rowan could sense Nami's feelings. The moment Sanji produced the rose, Nami had instinctively reacted. Now, her face flushed slightly, she didn't let go of Rowan's arm, instead, she subconsciously held on even tighter. Bang! Just as the restaurant descended into chaos, a marine soldier burst through the doors. Lieutenant Full Body. Sir. It's terrible. We let one of Don Krieg's men escape. The soldier reported frantically, drenched in cold sweat. What did you say? Impossible. When we captured him 3 days ago, he was starving to death. We haven't given him any food since. Full Body stared in disbelief. Krieg's crew? The strongest pirate fleet in the East Blue. Hearing the name, the other restaurant patrons instantly erupted in panicked murmurs. Strongest pirate fleet in the East Blue? Luffy looked intrigued. We are terribly sorry, sir. Bang. A gunshot rang out, silencing the marine soldier, who collapsed to the floor. Behind him, a figure holding a pistol slowly entered the restaurant. Chapter 41, This is a restaurant, right? A man wearing a gray coat, holding a pistol, of medium build with unkempt hair and beard, and thick lips, stumbled unsteadily into the barricade. He slumped down at an empty table, propping his legs up on it as if the simple action took all his remaining strength. Anything. Just get me something to eat. Jin rasped weakly. Esteemed customer, this establishment doesn't welcome freeloaders. Do you have money, sir? Patty approached Jin, rubbing his hands together greedily, plastering on an exaggerated smile. If this is a restaurant, then hurry up and bring the food. Or do you want a taste of lead? Jin snarled, his face grim, leveling his pistol at Patty. No money, huh? Patty's smile vanished instantly. Wham! Patty crossed his fists and slammed them down, smashing Jin and the table together. If you're not a customer, then get the hell out of here. He then proceeded to brutally kick and stomp on Jin. The surrounding customers cheered, seeing one of the restaurant's chefs beat up a member of the infamous Krieg pirates. I've had enough. What the hell is wrong with this restaurant? I'm never coming back here. Full Body, still on the floor, watched in terror as Jin, a man even he feared, was pummeled by a mere chef. Cold sweat drenched his forehead. He scrambled towards the exit. But as he reached the doorway, Full Body felt an immense pressure lock onto him again. He swallowed hard. It was coming from Sky Sovereign Rowan. Full Body immediately emptied his pockets, leaving all his money behind, then practically crawled out of the restaurant as fast as he could. Wow, this guy was actually pretty loaded. Nami commented, scooping up the money with a sweet smile. You guys have to pay your own way, though. I only covered mine and Rowan's. Nami then declared, looking pointedly at Zoro and Usopp. Huh? Zoro and Usopp, who had been watching the commotion, froze. Didn't Rowan basically get that money for them? How did it become Nami's? But seeing Rowan smiling indulgently beside Nami, Zoro and Usopp decided it was probably best to figure out how to pay their own bills. Rowan watched Nami with an affectionate smile. He knew Nami often talked tough about money, but when it truly mattered, she would likely still cover for them. Luffy noticed the chef with the curly eyebrows, Sanji, quietly heading towards the back kitchen alone. Alright folks, please continue enjoying your meals. Having finished beating Jin, Patty plastered his exaggerated smile back on, earning another round of applause from the patrons. He then dragged Jin out the back door and tossed him onto the outer deck. Don't let me see you again. Patty sneered, slamming the door shut. Hey! Are you hungry? Luffy called out from the second floor railing, looking down at Jin lying weakly on the deck. Shut up. I'm not hungry. Jin retorted weakly, still clinging to his pride despite his condition. But his growling stomach betrayed him instantly. Click. The back door opened again. Sanji emerged, carrying a plate of fried rice, which he placed gently in front of Jin. Eat up. Sanji said softly, lighting a cigarette and looking up at the sky, avoiding looking directly at Jin's pathetic state. Take it away. I don't accept charity. Jin stared at the fragrant fried rice, swallowing hard despite his words. Whether you eat it or not is your decision. But to me, anyone who's hungry is a customer. Sanji stated, exhaling a puff of smoke. No one knows better than me how terrifying it is to be stranded at sea without food or water. Sanji murmured, his eyes clouded with complex memories. He and Zeph, the owner, who was a pirate back then, had once been shipwrecked together on a barren rock, surviving for 48 days before rescue. No one understood the horror of starvation better than Sanji. That experience had forged his core principle: anyone who was hungry, regardless of who they were, was a customer deserving of a meal. Grudges could be settled after everyone had eaten. I understand if you refuse to eat out of pride. But if you eat this, you'll live. Sanji said, turning to look at Jin, a slight curve to his lips. The next moment, Jin grabbed the plate and began devouring the food ravenously. Delicious. So delicious. I thought I was really going to die. Jin sobbed, tears mixing with the food as he ate. Best you've ever had, right? Sanji asked, a genuine smile gracing his lips. Whenever Sanji saw someone starving eat his food, it reminded him of the overwhelming emotion he felt when he ate his first meal after being rescued, the taste of hope, the taste of life itself. Click. Found a suitable cook? Luffy. Just then, Rowan pushed open the door and walked over to Luffy's side, smiling as he looked down at the scene. Shishishi. Yep. Found a great cook. Luffy grinned back. Hey. Cook. Join my pirate crew and be our cook. Luffy then yelled down cheerfully at Sanji. Huh? Sanji looked up, momentarily bewildered upon seeing Luffy. You're the man with that beautiful lady, so you're a pirate? Sanji's gaze then shifted to Rowan beside Luffy, his expression turning serious. That's right. Name's Rowan. Luffy's comrade. How about it? Want to join us? Rowan asked Sanji with a smile. Rowan watched Sanji. His principle, that anyone hungry is a customer, even a potential enemy who might bring greater danger, must be fed first. Rowan didn't find it foolish at all. He admired it. The most important duty of a chef is to feed people. That is the fundamental calling of the position. Feeding anyone who is hungry, even strangers, even potential enemies, that was Sanji's unique core principle. Everyone who survived on these seas had their own principles, their own lines they wouldn't cross. Some might seem foolish to others, but by adhering steadfastly to one's own nature, one could become truly strong. Besides, Rowan, having come from Japan where food held immense significance, understood this well. Although he hadn't lived through the eras of widespread famine, resources weren't always abundant during his childhood either. Getting to eat delicious food he craved was an occasional luxury. And the deep-seated cultural importance of ensuring everyone was fed seemed almost ingrained in the DNA of people from his homeland. When meeting someone familiar, the first question after initial greetings was always, "Have you eaten?" If not, then eating came first. Even if facing a major crisis, eating first was essential. Even if preparing to fight to the death, both sides should eat first. Just as Luffy often yelled in the original story, "If you're hungry, you eat." Chapter 42, Rowan? That name sounds familiar. Sanji murmured upon hearing Rowan's name, thinking aloud. He seemed to recall some customers discussing that name recently. But for Sanji, his interests lay solely in beautiful women and cooking. He hadn't paid much attention at the time, and Rowan's potential other identities held no interest for him now. Compared to any other status Rowan might possess, what Sanji envied most was that Rowan had been chosen by that beautiful lady. I refuse. Sanji stated flatly, rejecting Luffy's invitation immediately. I refuse. Luffy yelled back, surprisingly even more vehemently than Sanji. Refuse what? Sanji looked utterly confused. I refuse your refusal. You're a good cook, so come be a pirate with me. Luffy declared seriously. Will you listen when someone's talking? Sanji snapped, transforming into his sharp-toothed angry state again. What is wrong with this straw-hatted kid's brain? You guys. You're pirates too? Why are you gathering comrades? Jin suddenly asked, painful memories seemingly surfacing as cold sweat broke out on his forehead. That's right. We're heading to the Grand Line. Luffy announced proudly, head held high. Jin's face turned deathly pale, even more so than when he was starving moments ago. Since you're still looking for a cook, your crew probably isn't large enough for the Grand Line yet. Jin stated suddenly. He's number 6. Luffy said, pointing at Sanji with a grin. Why are you including me? Sanji yelled, exasperated. I'm Jin, of the Krieg Pirates. Jin introduced himself formally. You guys don't seem like bad people. Let me give you some advice, it's best not to go to the Grand Line. You're still young, there's no need to rush. The Grand Line is just another sea, after all. You can be pirates anywhere, right? Jin looked earnestly at Luffy and Rowan. Went to the Grand Line and got your spirit broken, huh? Rowan observed, looking at Jin. It wasn't mockery, just pity. The Krieg pirates were incredibly unlucky. They had just entered the Grand Line only to immediately encounter one of the absolute pinnacles of combat strength in the world. Warlord of the Sea, world's greatest swordsman, Hawkeye's Dracul Mihawk. And for some unknown reason, a figure of Mihawk's caliber had chased them all the way back to the East Blue. Jin couldn't refute Rowan's words. He had been utterly terrified. That man wasn't human. You've been to the Grand Line? Do you know anything about it? Luffy asked Jin eagerly. No. We know nothing. We understand nothing. That's why it's so terrifying. Jin clutched his head in anguish. They hadn't even truly experienced the Grand Line before their massive fleet was annihilated by that single man. Whatever. I'm definitely going to the Grand Line anyway. Luffy said, seeing Jin's distress and deciding not to press further, offering a grin instead. Well, I just wanted to give you some advice. Jin sighed resignedly, then stood up. Well then, goodbye, Mr. Sanji. Thank you so much. You saved my life. That fried rice was truly the best meal I've ever eaten in my life. Can I come back again sometime? Jin hopped onto the small raft he'd arrived on, looking back at Sanji with a grateful smile. Anyone who's hungry is always welcome here. Sanji replied with a smile. Hey. Chore boy. Just then, a loud shout interrupted them. Old man. Luffy tensed up, sweating nervously as Zeph appeared behind them. Being indebted to someone made Luffy incredibly nervous around Zeph. I'm really sorry, Mr. Sanji. You'll probably get yelled at for feeding someone like me for free. Jin said apologetically to Sanji. What are you talking about? Sanji calmly picked up Jin's empty plate and spoon and tossed them into the sea. No evidence, no reason to get yelled at. Now get going, Jin. Sanji said with a smirk. Shishishi. Luffy grinned. He wanted Sanji on his ship more and more. Zeph simply watched coldly. His relationship with Sanji was like father and son, and as chefs, they shared the same core principle. He wouldn't get angry just because Sanji fed a starving pirate for free. That damn brat Sanji. He's just trying to ease the pirate's conscience. Try not to get caught by the Marines again, Jin. Sanji called out with a smile as Jin unfurled his sail, preparing to leave. Thank you so much, Mr. Sanji. I'll never forget your kindness. Jin knelt on his raft, performing a deep dojuzabo towards Sanji. Then, his sail caught the wind, and he drifted away. Say. You got invited by them, right? Sanji. Why don't you just go off and be a pirate with them? We don't need you here anymore anyway. Zeph suddenly stated gruffly. Huh? What did you say, you damned old geezer? Sanji instantly bristled, frowning deeply. Alright. We got permission. Now you can come be a pirate with us. Luffy exclaimed, overjoyed. I'll say it again. I'm not becoming any damn pirate. And I'm the sous chef of this restaurant, you old fart. Sanji yelled back, his eye twitching. Zeph didn't reply, merely glanced towards Rowan. The moment Zeph saw Rowan, he hadn't recognized him immediately. Photos were just photos, after all. Recognizing someone instantly from a picture alone wasn't always easy. But the moment he heard Rowan's name, Zeph knew. The new super rookie emerging from the East Blue, the user of Conqueror's Haki, Sky Sovereign Rowan. Although Zeph's own strength and experience, even having sailed the Grand Line for a year, didn't grant him full understanding of Conqueror's Haki, he remembered the era when he sailed. The seas were chaotic then, before the current balance of Marines, warlords, and emperors solidified. The older generation of powerhouses hadn't fully faded yet, and news and rumors circulated widely. The event that left the deepest impression on Zeph from that time was the legendary escape of the great pirate, Golden Lion Shiki. Rumor had it that Shiki possessed the power of Conqueror's Haki. If that was true, then the World Economic News Agency's assessment of this young man, that a future king of the seas was about to be born, made sense. A captain acknowledged by such a man. This seemingly foolish kid named Luffy must be someone special too. And although their interaction was brief, Zeph could tell Luffy was different from common thugs. He was a pirate with a dream. Entrusting Sanji to someone like that, Zeph felt relieved. Sanji shouldn't be chained here by guilt and gratitude, guilt over Zeph sacrificing his leg to give Sanji the remaining food when they were stranded, spending his youth accompanying an old man like him. Sanji should pursue his own dream. Only the Grand Line held the key to fulfilling Sanji's dream of finding the All Blue. No matter what you say, I'm staying at this restaurant as a cook. Until the day you die. Sanji yelled after arguing heatedly with Zeph. I won't die. I plan to live another 100 years. Zeph retorted, turning and walking back into the restaurant. Knowing Sanji's stubborn personality, Zeph understood his words wouldn't convince Sanji to leave. His statement was merely signaling to Luffy and Rowan, he wouldn't stand in the way of Sanji leaving. Whether they could actually recruit Sanji, that depended on their own abilities. Rowan watched Luffy relentlessly continue trying to persuade Sanji, then turned his gaze towards the sea. Jin's raft had gradually disappeared over the horizon. But Rowan knew, soon, Jin would return, bringing his captain, Don Krieg. And along with them, would come that man. The world's greatest swordsman, Hawkeye's Dracul Mihawk. Not only does Zoro want to find Mihawk, I have some business with him too. Rowan's lips curved into a knowing smile. Chapter 43, Today, the fog was thick. When are we gonna set sail already? Are we really gonna be stuck here for a whole year? Usopp complained helplessly from the deck of the Mary. Who knows? Look, Rowan doesn't seem worried. Zoro commented nonchalantly, polishing Wado Akamaji. Rowan. Think of something. Usopp pleaded, clasping his hands together as he looked at Rowan, who was leaning against the railing, eyes closed, enjoying the sea breeze. As captain, Luffy needs to solve the problems he causes himself. Besides, the cook hasn't officially joined yet. Rowan replied, opening his eyes and smiling at Usopp. Mihawk is coming. Rowan needed to seize every moment to enhance his haki using Born of the Sea, Apex Gold. For his own plans. Hearing Rowan's words, Usopp deflated like a punctured balloon. Heave-ho. Just then, Luffy emerged from the restaurant carrying a large pile of garbage. Hey, Luffy. When are we finally leaving? Usopp yelled immediately. Just wait a bit longer. I'm gonna go ask the old man again. Luffy called back, his head poking out from behind the mountain of trash he was carrying. Just after speaking, Luffy heard something and looked out towards the sea. Through the thick fog, a massive ship slowly emerged. A Black Panther figurehead adorned its bow, and its Jolly Roger featured a grinning skull flanked by hourglasses. This flag. No one in the East Blue didn't recognize it. It's the Krieg Pirates. Why is the overlord of the East Blue here? The restaurant customers instantly erupted in panic. Hey. Patty. Krieg is really here. You'll drive him away, right? One of the chefs yelled at Patty, his face pale with sweat. Why? That's Don Krieg, the pirate admiral with 5,000 men under his command. Why would he come all this way just to avenge one subordinate? Patty clutched his head, remembering Jin whom he had beaten up earlier. Hey. This is bad. We gotta run. Usopp stared at the enormous galleon, clutching his head in terror. How can a ship be that huge? Nami gasped, equally stunned. But seeing Rowan step calmly in front of her, a warmth spread through Nami's chest, replacing her fear with a sense of security. Whoa. What a big ship. Luffy exclaimed, admiring the vessel. Think that Jin guy came back to repay your kindness? Luffy grinned at Sanji, who had come out upon hearing the commotion. I don't think so. But something strange. Sanji murmured, his eyes narrowing. Huh? Luffy looked confused. But the next moment, the colossal ship sailed completely out of the fog, revealing its full state to everyone. The ship is totally wrecked. Luffy observed, looking at the heavily damaged vessel. Doesn't look like cannon damage. But it doesn't look man-made either. Sanji analyzed, focusing on the most prominent damage near the center of the ship. Zoro, that gash, doesn't it look like it was made by a sword? Rowan asked, looking at the massive, clean horizontal slice across the ship's hull. A faint smile touched his lips, and his haki began to stir, almost boiling with anticipation. Made by a sword? Impossible. Zoro retorted instinctively. How could a sword possibly cut such a massive galleon in half? But looking closer, Zoro fell silent. That massive fissure. It truly did look like the mark left by a single, impossibly sharp blade. A swordsman capable of such a feat was. Remembering Johnny's words about rumors of the hawk-eyed man he sought being near here, Zoro gripped Wado Akamanji tighter. Just then, two figures descended from the massive galleon. One was Jin. He was currently carrying a tall but extremely weakened figure. It was the so-called overlord of the East Blue, Don Krieg. Please. Food and water. I have money. Krieg grasped weakly the moment he entered the restaurant. Upon learning Krieg hadn't eaten in days and was completely drained of strength, Patty, who had been terrified moments before, instantly changed his tune, yelling for Krieg to get out. Feeding a dangerous pirate like him could lead to disaster. But immediately after, Sanji emerged from the kitchen carrying a plate of fried rice, placing it before Krieg. Sanji demonstrated his principle through action. Anyone hungry was his customer. However, after Krieg finished eating, wham! With a swift elbow strike, Krieg slammed Sanji hard in the throat, catching him completely off guard and sending him crashing to the floor. Captain. That wasn't what we agreed. Mr. Sanji saved my life. Jin cried out. Crack. Jin, trying to intervene, had his arm snapped instantly by Krieg. The restaurant customers screamed and fled in terror, but Krieg didn't stop them. The Barati chefs, led by Patty, tried to subdue Krieg but were swiftly defeated. Prepare food for 100 men. My crew on board is starving. Krieg ordered coldly. Never. The Barati chefs refused, naturally unwilling. But then, they saw Sanji, whom Krieg had knocked down, slowly get back up and head towards the kitchen. What are you doing, Sanji? Patty roared. I don't have time to chat. There are 100 meals to cook. Sanji replied calmly, wiping a trickle of blood from the corner of his mouth. Ah. The chefs menacingly raised their sharp kitchen knives, pointing them at Sanji. Are you a spy for the Krieg pirates, Sanji? One chef yelled accusingly. I know he's a hopeless bastard. But I'm a cook. If someone's hungry, I feed them. Nothing else matters. Even if they attack this place afterward. The ones I fight will be well-fed bastards. Sanji stated flatly. Here. This should be enough for 100 men. Just as Sanji stood off against the other chefs, Zeph placed a massive bundle of food supplies on the floor. You're, red-leg Zeph. Krieg recognized Zeph's identity, but immediately sneered. Hand over your logbook from your year sailing the Grand Line. With that logbook, I'll gather my men again, enter the Grand Line, take the One Piece, and rule these seas. Krieg demanded, glaring at Zeph. Hold on. I'm the one who's gonna be king of the pirates. Luffy, who had been watching quietly until now, immediately stepped forward upon hearing Krieg's claim, pointing angrily. Stay back, chore boy. You're no match for him. Patty yelled urgently. I can't back down from this. Not this. Luffy replied, a determined smile spreading across his face, a glimpse of his own kingly disposition. Brat. This isn't playtime. Krieg sneered condescendingly. I'm serious. Luffy retorted, standing his ground against Krieg. That's the Devil's Sea where my fleet of 5,000 men was annihilated in just 7 days. What makes a brat like you think you can survive there? Krieg roared. Since you want to die, maybe I should just finish you off right here. Krieg's shoulder armor opened, revealing hidden cannons. Luffy rolled up his sleeves, preparing to fight Krieg. Gonna fight him, Luffy? Zoro's voice came from nearby. Need some help, Luffy? Rowan asked, stepping forward, his lips curved slightly as he looked at Krieg. What exactly did this guy do to get Hawkeyes to chase him all the way here? Rowan. You guys came? Nah, it's fine. Just watch from there. Luffy replied, seeing Rowan and the others, patting his chest confidently. Anyone who claimed they'd be king of the pirates, Luffy would defeat them all. Krieg glanced at Zoro, then at Zeph. Finally, his gaze rested on Rowan. This guy, his presence, feels completely different from that chore boy. Krieg's eye twitched slightly. He retracted his weapons. Best to let his men recover their strength first. Then, overwhelm these guys with sheer numbers. I'll deal with you later. I need to feed my men first. Krieg announced, hoisting the bundle of food supplies. Anyone who wants to run, now's your chance. My goal is the Grand Line logbook and this ship. Krieg turned and headed back towards his massive galleon outside. I'm so sorry, Mr. Sanji. I never wanted things to turn out like this. After Krieg left, Jin collapsed to his knees, apologizing profusely. You don't need to apologize, we chefs just act according to our own code. Zeph stated gruffly before Sanji could reply. Boss. Why are you still defending Sanji? Sanji's going to destroy this restaurant. If he hadn't fed Krieg, none of this would have happened. The other chefs yelled angrily. All of you, shut up. Do you know what it feels like to starve nearly to death? Think hard about what makes you different from Sanji, as chefs. Zeph roared. The chefs looked bewildered, not understanding what Zeph meant. If you have time to complain, you'd better leave through the back door. Zeph pointed towards the rear exit. But this is our workplace. Besides, we have nowhere else to go. Though unsure of Zeph's meaning, the chefs still picked up their kitchen knives, ready to defend the Verity. Hey! Didn't you see the captain's power? Why are you trying to get yourselves killed? Jin yelled desperately, breaking out in a cold sweat. Hey, Jin. Just then, Sanji walked over, kicking an overturned table upright with his foot. Let me make this clear. Feeding the hungry is my justice as a cook. However, from now on, they are well-fed invaders. Even if I beat down all your comrades later, don't you dare complain. Sanji stated, leaning against a table, looking up with a grim expression. If they try to take this restaurant, even you, I'll kill without hesitation. Jin swallowed hard, stunned by Sanji's cold resolve. Humphrey. Saving someone just to kill them later. You're really something else, Sanji. Patty scoffed, still unable to understand Sanji's actions. Shut up, crappy cook. Sanji retorted, lighting a cigarette. See? I told you this guy was cool. Luffy pointed at Sanji, grinning at Rowan and the others. Who cares if he's cool? We need to escape. Usopp's cowardly nature flared up, his legs shaking violently. Calm down, you idiot. Didn't you just get praised by Rowan back in Syrup Village? Weren't you just boasting about wanting to become a brave warrior of the sea? Zoro tapped Usopp's head lightly with his sword sheath. I'll fight too, of course. When it really counts. Usopp stammered, his legs trembling visibly, making his words sound utterly unconvincing. Then we'll be counting on you, Usopp. Rowan said, clapping Usopp reassuringly on a shoulder with a smile. When the chips were down, Usopp really didn't fold. Leave it to me. Hearing the pirate he admired so much, Rowan, say that, Usopp could only stand tall, tears welling up, and force the words out. Hey, Jin. What exactly did you guys run into in the Grand Line? Luffy asked, turning his attention back to Jin, who hadn't left yet. It happened on the 7th day after entering the Grand Line. Even now, thinking back, I can't tell if it was real or just a nightmare. Jin recounted, sweat pouring down his face uncontrollably. It's unbelievable. Just one man. Almost wiped out our entire fleet of 50 ships. What? Everyone except Rowan gasped, their faces etched with shock. Even the normally unflappable Luffy's jaw dropped. The moment that man appeared, our ships started sinking, one after another. If we hadn't luckily run into a storm, even the main ship would have been completely sunk. Jin clutched his head, closing his eyes in agony. That man. With eyes that looked like they could kill you just by looking. The hawk-eyed man. What did you say? Zoro's pupils constricted instantly, his reaction extreme. Someone capable of doing that. It must have been Hawkeye's. Zeph murmured gravely. Hawkeye's Mihawk. Zoro gripped Wado Kamenji tightly, his entire body trembling. You know him, Zoro? Luffy looked up at Zoro, surprised. This was the first time he had seen Zoro react so intensely. He's the man I set out to see to find. Zoro stated firmly. But one man wiping out an entire fleet? Isn't that too exaggerated, Rowan? Usopp asked nervously, looking towards Rowan, the most knowledgeable among them, hoping for some reassurance. The Grand Line is just that kind of place. Anything can happen there. Rowan replied, the crimson-black light flickering faintly in his eyes. I think I've caught the I'll die if I go to the Grand Line disease. Usopp clutched his chest dramatically. NGH. Luffy bowed his head, his body trembling. Hey, Luffy. You agree we shouldn't go there either, right? Usopp misinterpreted Luffy's reaction, thinking he'd found an ally. But then. That sounds so exciting. That's exactly how it should be. Luffy yelled, pumped up with excitement. Can't you consider your own safety for even a second? Usopp snapped, transforming into his sharp-toothed angry state. But now. My goal is firmly set on the Grand Line. Just like you said, Rowan. Only on the Grand Line can I achieve my ambition. I can find that man, Hawkeye's, there. Zoro declared, a feral grin spreading across his face. Isn't that just foolish? Sanji suddenly interjected. For some reason, he found this moss-headed swordsman irritating. You guys seem like the type to die first. Sanji added dismissively. You might not be wrong. But calling it foolish is unnecessary. Zoro retorted, his mouth turning downwards. He found this curly-browed cook inexplicably annoying too. The moment I decided to become the world's greatest swordsman, I cast aside life and death. The only one who gets to call that decision foolish is me. Zoro stated firmly. Me too. Luffy immediately raised his hand. As a brave warrior of the sea. Me too, of course. Usopp declared, trembling all over. You're lying again, aren't you? Zoro sighed, looking helplessly at Usopp. Seriously? So stupid. Sanji muttered, looking down. Humphrey. Zeph smirked slightly. He could see it, Sanji was starting to feel drawn to joining their crew. Do you people have any idea what's going on? Parked right outside is the flagship of that pirate fleet Admiral, Don Krieg. Paddy the chef suddenly roared. Is this really the time to be discussing dreams? Meanwhile, Don Krieg, having allowed his men to eat and regain their strength, was ordering them to seize the Verity. The next second, slice. Krieg's massive galleon was cleanly sliced in two. The sinking of the huge ship created enormous waves, causing the Verity to rock violently. He's here. Rowan's lips curved into a knowing smile. Stepping outside the restaurant, they saw a man sitting gracefully on a small, coffin-shaped boat. He actually chased us all the way from the Grand Line to here? Don Krieg roared in disbelief and fury, staring at the man. That man is... Zeph's pupils constricted. One of the 7 warlords of the sea. The world's greatest swordsman. Hawkeye's Dracul Mihawk. Rowan stated calmly, his lips still curved in a smile. Check traits. Chapter 44, Mihawk traits, Armament Hockey, Apex Gold, Observation Hockey, Apex Gold, World's Greatest Swordsman, Apex Gold, Conqueror's Hockey, Apex Gold. Armament Hockey, Apex Gold, hockey that enhances one's own defensive and offensive capabilities, and allows the user to strike the substantial bodies of Devil Fruit users. Observation Hockey, Apex Gold, hockey that heightens the 5 senses, potentially developing into preternatural perception. Allows sensing the presence and emotional state of nearby living beings, and can be used to anticipate and evade danger. At its peak, allows brief glimpses into the future. World's Greatest Swordsman, Apex Gold, needs no further explanation. On these seas, among all who wield a sword, he stands as the undisputed strongest. Conqueror's Hockey, Apex Gold, complete mastery of Conqueror's Hockey, infusion, possessing the power to reign as an emperor on these seas. This is a true pinnacle powerhouse of these seas. The traits possessed by the world's greatest swordsman, Hawkeye's Dracul Mihawk. Seeing the blinding array of gold, Rowan's lips curled into a smile tinged with excitement. Mihawk's strength was, without a doubt, emperor level. Just as expected, this man had fully mastered infused Conqueror's Hockey. Later in the original story, the main reason Buggy managed to become an emperor was precisely because of this man standing before him. Mihawk was also the only member of an emperor's crew, Cross Guild, whose bounty surpassed that of the emperor, Buggy, himself. As for Crocodile, his significantly lower bounty later on clearly indicated that, in the eyes of the Marines, Crocodile's strength wasn't considered top tier, he hadn't reached the pinnacle level of the world's strongest. The Marines even explicitly stated Crocodile's high bounty was primarily due to acknowledgement of his strategic threat. Based on strength alone, even reaching the final stages, Crocodile wouldn't have warranted a bounty close to 1.9 billion. Essentially, the reason the Cross Guild in the original story was recognized as an emperor crew was solely because of Hawkeye's Dracul Mihawk. Without an emperor-level powerhouse, no amount of luck would have allowed Buggy to become an emperor. To finally meet one of the absolute strongest individuals on these seas after coming to this world. Rowan felt the Conqueror's Hockey within him stir, almost boiling with anticipation. Hawkeye's Mihawk. Zoro, who had quickly moved to Rowan's side, was visibly trembling. Not from fear, but from excitement. And nervousness. After all, Zoro had only just set out to sea. He lacked the disposition and experience he would gain later. Facing the world's strongest, the very man he had set out to challenge, Zoro couldn't help but feel overwhelmingly tense. Rowan. I moved the ship to a safe spot. Nami called out, having maneuvered one of the smaller boats alongside the Verity's outer deck where Rowan stood. Thanks for your hard work. Rowan replied, suppressing the simmering Conqueror's Hockey within him and offering Nami a smile. Nami, true to her developing reliance on Rowan, hadn't abandoned them like her original counterpart might have to face Arlong alone. Bastard. What grudge do we have with you? Why are you attacking us like this? At that moment, one of Don Krieg's pirates, completely breaking down, screamed hysterically at Mihawk. Just killing time. Mihawk replied nonchalantly. Don't screw with us. The pirate roared, raising 2 pistols and firing at Mihawk. With imperceptible speed, the black blade strapped to Mihawk's back, Yoru, was drawn. Despite being a massive sword, it moved with impossible grace in Mihawk's hands. Clink. Clink. The 2 bullets instantly ricocheted, their trajectories altered. Rowan's eyes narrowed. Mihawk's swordsmanship. Unlike Zoro's powerful, wide-open style, was a perfect fusion of hardness and softness. Ordinary bullets without Haki infusion were like dust motes before Yoru, one of the 12 supreme-grade swords, renowned as the world's strongest black blade. Especially when wielded by the world's greatest swordsman. Yet Mihawk hadn't simply cut the bullets, he had used the razor edge of his blade to deflect them, subtly changing their path without destroying them. This demonstrated absolute, pinpoint control over every inch of his blade. Capable of cleaving mountains, yet also deflecting bullets with finesse. Such mastery of both power and precision. In close combat, it would be an absolute nightmare for any other swordsman or fighter. Swordsmen, even great swordsmen, might launch terrifying flying slashes, but their true killing techniques lay in close quarters combat. Haki and stamina were finite, even for emperor-level fighters. Infusing massive amounts of Haki into wide-ranging flying slashes would be incredibly draining. This was likely why the slash Mihawk launched during the Summit War could be blocked by Diamond Jazu. It probably lacked significant Haki infusion and was merely a probing attack. Furthermore, flying slashes, being ranged attacks detached from the swordsman, inevitably lost some power compared to a direct strike from the blade itself. Witnessing Mihawk display such terrifying skill with just a casual flick of his wrist, Rowan pulled Nami behind him, the crimson black light in his own eyes beginning to simmer intensely. Bibatai aimed right at him. The pirate grunt stammered in disbelief. He deflected them. He used the edge of his sword to gently change the bullets' paths. Zoro stated gravely, stepping forward. Without further words, Zoro began walking towards Mihawk. "Hey! Who are you?" The pirate who had shot at Mihawk yelled. Click. Zoro drew Wado Kamenji from its sheath at his waist. The sight of his 3 swords instantly drew the attention of everyone present. 3 swords. Could it be? One of Don Krieg's pirates murmured, breaking into a cold sweat. "I've never seen such a soft sword before," Zoro commented, looking at Mihawk, a feral grin spreading across his face. "A sword wielded solely with brute force lacks depth," Mihawk replied calmly, turning his gaze towards Zoro. "That ship. Did you cut it with this sword too?" Zoro asked, glancing at the massive galleon cleanly sliced in two. "Indeed," Mihawk replied simply. "I see. So you really are the strongest." Zoro's grin widened with excitement. "I set out to see. To meet you." Zoro untied the bandana from his arm and tied it around his head, signifying his intention to fight with his full strength. "Your goal?" Mihawk asked, showing a flicker of interest. "To be the strongest," Zoro declared, his own unique disposition radiating from his smile. "Humphrey. How foolish," Mihawk replied, a faint, almost imperceptible smile touching his lips. "You seem bored. Let's have a match." Zoro pointed Wado Akamenji directly at Mihawk. "That guy. It's Pirate Hunter Zoro," one of Krieg's pirates yelled. "So he's Zoro?" Sanji looked surprised. This moss-headed guy was the famous pirate hunter of the East Blue? Humphrey. Pirate hunter? Don Krieg narrowed his eyes. So that brat screw has someone like this too. But the feeling he got from that other man was even stronger than Zoro. Krieg looked towards Rowan, cold sweat beginning to form on his brow again. What the hell? Why does this man feel even stronger now than he did just moments ago? Just standing there. The feeling of terrifying power was overwhelming. Especially when Krieg caught glimpses of the crimson black light flickering in the man's eyes. Krieg instinctively lowered his head, unable to meet his gaze directly. How? Panting heavily, veins bulged on Krieg's forehead. He was the overlord of the East Blue. Yet looking at this man, he felt an absurd, instinctive sense of unworthiness, as if gazing up at something godly, something far beyond him. "A match? You pitiable weakling," Mihawk stated flatly. Shink. Without any discernible movement, Mihawk vanished from his coffin boat and reappeared directly in front of Zoro. "If you were a skilled swordsman, you would grasp the disparity in our strength even without crossing blades. Pointing your sword at me now. Should I call it courage? Or mere ignorance?" Mihawk asked, his golden eyes devoid of emotion. "Ignorance, huh?" Zoro gripped Wado Akamenji, his feral grin widening. "Maybe before meeting Rowan, I was somewhat ignorant. But now, I have some understanding of what this sea truly holds. Luffy. Rowan. Sorry about this. I'm acting on my own here. Before heading to the Grand Line, I have to test myself against this man," Zoro declared, his eyes blazing with wild determination as he looked towards Rowan and Luffy. "A path you chose yourself. Walk it well, Zoro." Rowan replied, a confident, powerful curve to his lips. "As captain, I support whatever my comrades decide. I'll be watching you right here, Zoro." Luffy yelled encouragingly. "Rowan? Could he be that Sky Sovereign Rowan?" Hearing Zoro call out the name, Everyone's attention instantly focused on Rowan. Sky Sovereign Rowan? It really is him. Don Krieg's jaw clenched. He knew about the super rookie who had recently appeared in the East Blue, of course. But he never expected to meet him like this. He had initially assumed the title was just empty hype. But facing the man now, Krieg found he lacked even the courage to look him directly in the eye. Damn it. He was the overlord of the East Blue. Krieg gasped for breath, struggling to regain composure. Rowan? Mihawk's sharp, hawk-like eyes turned towards Rowan. Sensing the powerful aura faintly radiating from Rowan, ready to explode forth at any moment, Mihawk's own eyes narrowed slightly. Conqueror's Haki. Interesting. To encounter a man possessing Conqueror's Haki of this level. In the weakest sea. Then, Mihawk noticed Luffy's hat. That's Shanks's. I see. So, Shanks bet his arm on this boy? Mihawk's expression remained impassive, but ripples stirred within him. Shanks losing his arm in the East Blue had caused huge waves back in the New World. It was also a great personal regret for Mihawk. Shanks was primarily a left-handed swordsman. Losing that arm meant Mihawk lost the pleasure of sparring with his rival. Shanks had claimed back then that he bet his arm on a new era. He hadn't expected Shanks to bet it on such an unremarkable-looking boy. However, looking at the crimson black light flickering in Rowan's eyes, Mihawk's gaze sharpened again. Acknowledged by a Conqueror's Haki user of this caliber. And backed by Shanks's bet. This boy's future is certainly worth anticipating. Well then. As a favor to Shanks. Let's show this swordsman before me just how vast this sea truly is. Oh. With a disdainful sigh, Mihawk drew a tiny knife, barely larger than a fruit knife, from the cross pendant hanging on his chest. Zoro's face fell. Unlike foolish beasts, I do not use a cannon to hunt a rabbit. Apologies, but I don't seem to have anything smaller than this. Mihawk stated calmly. There's a limit to how much you can underestimate someone. Zoro roared, thoroughly enraged. Clenching Wado Akamenji between his teeth and gripping a sword in each hand, he charged ferociously towards Mihawk. Three-sword style, Onigiri, Demon Slash. Clang. The next instant, Zoro's signature three-sword style technique was effortlessly blocked by Mihawk using only the small knife. Everyone present, except Rowan, was utterly stunned. The pirate hunter Zoro, blocked by a tiny fruit knife? Can't move. What's happening? How can the gap be so vast? Sweat dripped continuously from Zoro's brow. He had only had one technique blocked, yet his body felt completely immobilized. Having learned about Haki from Rowan, Zoro had anticipated a tough fight against Mihawk, perhaps involving Haki. But he never imagined the difference in strength would be this immense. Forget Haki, the man hadn't even drawn a proper sword, just a small knife. The world's strongest can't be this far away. Zoro roared mentally, his composure shattering. He launched a frantic barrage of attacks at Mihawk. But his wild, disordered slashes were all parried with casual grace by Mihawk using only the small knife, as if taking a leisurely stroll. Soon, Zoro was completely toyed with by Mihawk until he was utterly exhausted. Weakling. What burden do you carry? What do you aspire to achieve through strength? Mihawk asked calmly, watching Zoro, completely drained but still swinging his swords feebly before finally collapsing from exhaustion. Calling Big Bro weak. You bastard. That man is our big bro. Seeing Zoro toyed with like this, Johnny and Yozaku couldn't hold back any longer. They were about to charge recklessly at Mihawk. But Luffy's rubber arms shot out, grabbing them and pinning them to the deck. Don't interfere. Johnny. Yozaku, this is Zoro's fight. Luffy gritted his teeth, veins bulging all over his body as he restrained them. Watch closely, a man like Zoro doesn't need pity. Rowan stated firmly, the crimson black light of Conqueror's Haki almost visibly overflowing from his eyes. I absolutely cannot lose. Zoro's mind flashed with images, his promise to Kuina, his pact with Luffy, Rowan, and the others. His ambition, to become the world's greatest swordsman. Toragari, Tiger Hunt. Zoro roared, mustering his last strength for another attack. Shink. The small knife pierced Zoro's chest. Why didn't you retreat? Did you wish for your heart to be pierced? Mihawk's eyes narrowed slightly. He had held back. Zoro only needed to step back slightly to avoid this wound. I don't know. I just felt that if I retreated, all the vows and promises I've ever made would vanish completely. Zoro replied, looking straight at Mihawk. Indeed. That is called defeat. Mihawk stated simply. Then I definitely can't retreat. Zoro grinned. You'd rather die than retreat? Mihawk's gaze intensified. Maybe. Dying here would be better. Zoro replied, a smile reflecting his unwavering resolve. Such strength of heart. Rather than accept defeat, he chooses death? A flash of admiration appeared in Mihawk's eyes. He sheathed the small knife and drew the great black blade. Yoru. Boy. State your name. Roronoa Zoro. Zoro declared, arranging his three swords defensively, a feral grin spreading across his face. I will remember it. It has been long since I met such strength. As a gesture of respect between swordsmen, I shall use this strongest of black blades to send you to the depths. Mihawk replied, a rare smile touching his lips. I appreciate the honor. Zoro responded, gripping his three swords and unleashing his strongest attack. Three-sword style secret jutsu, Sanzen Sekai, 3,000 worlds. Sheeing. Blood sprayed through the air. Other than Wado Akamaji, the swords in Zoro's hands shattered upon impact. I lost. So this is the power of the world's strongest. Zoro silently sheathed Wado Akamaji, then turned to face Mihawk, spreading his arms wide, exposing his chest. What is this? Mihawk looked slightly surprised. Scars on the back. Our swordsman's shame. Zoro declared, laughing loudly. Sabarashi. Magnificent, Mihawk laughed heartily in response. Slash. The black blade sliced deeply across Zoro's chest, sending him falling backward into the sea. Zoro. Seeing the outcome, Luffy could restrain himself no longer. He launched himself at Mihawk using his Gamu Gamu powers, but Mihawk easily dodged, letting Luffy crash into the wreckage of Don Krieg's galleon. Calm yourself. He is not dead yet. Mihawk stated calmly. Watching Johnny and Yozaku dive into the sea to rescue Zoro, Rowan leaped gracefully, landing directly in front of Mihawk. Mihawk's eyes narrowed, focusing on Rowan. VMM. The crimson-black light in Rowan's eyes solidified, seeming to crackle faintly in the air. A similar crimson-black glint flashed in Mihawk's own eyes. Conqueror's Haki vs. Conqueror's Haki. King vs. King. Chapter 45, Rowan. Seeing Rowan step forward to face Mihawk directly, especially after witnessing Zoro's utter helplessness against him moments before, Nami cried out, her eyes filled with fear and worry. Zoro was renowned throughout the East Blue, a pirate hunter feared even by pirates with multi-million Bailey bounties. Yet, before the hawk-eyed man, he was as fragile as an infant. Rowan was strong, yes. But against a monster like this. Nami watched Rowan's back as he faced Mihawk, her hands clasped tightly over her heart, fraught with anxiety. One after another. Are they all crazy? That moss head. He was facing the world's strongest. He should have known the outcome before even starting. Couldn't he just give up on his ambition? It's simple, right? Just give up. Sanji muttered, watching Johnny and Yozaku haul Zoro's broken body onto a small boat. He then looked at Rowan, who stood firm before Mihawk despite the vivid example of Zoro's defeat. Sanji wasn't dismissing Rowan or Zoro. Instead, he was trying to convince himself. Although he found the moss-headed swordsman annoying and deeply envied Rowan for winning the beautiful lady's favor, Sanji looked at them and saw kindred spirits. People willing to risk everything, even their lives, for their ambitions and dreams. His own act of feeding Don Krieg earlier. Fundamentally, how different was it from that idiot moss-head challenging Mihawk? Sanji felt a flicker of longing. A pull towards joining this crew. But he still owed Zeph a debt of gratitude he hadn't fully repaid. You are companions of that young swordsman, correct? Thank you for staying to witness the end. Mihawk stated calmly, looking at Rowan. A faint crimson-black light flickered within his hawk-like eyes. To possess haki of this caliber. In the weakest sea. It is quite surprising. Mihawk acknowledged, his tone becoming slightly more serious. This was respect offered to another man who had awakened Conqueror's haki, who possessed the disposition of a king. It seems you have business with me. However, allow me to conclude this matter first. Mihawk said slowly. The simmering Conqueror's haki around Rowan subsided slightly, indicating his assent. Young swordsman. It is too early for you to die. Mihawk called out, looking towards Zoro who had just been pulled aboard the boat. My name is Dracul Mihawk. Discover yourself. See the true world. Become strong. No matter how many years it takes, I shall wait for you at the top. Surpass this sword. Surpass me. Roronoa Zoro. Mihawk's words were an acknowledgement from the world's greatest swordsman of Zoro's performance. This young swordsman possessed the powerful spirit required to become a truly great swordsman. He also possessed the pride of a swordsman. It had been a long time since Mihawk encountered a newcomer with such potential, one worth anticipating. Ever since Shanks lost his left arm, sealing away his left-handed swordsmanship forever, Mihawk had felt a profound loneliness. In terms of pure swordsmanship, no one left on the seas could truly force him to be serious. Big bro. Wake up. Johnny and Yozaku sobbed, while Usopp frantically applied medicine and tended to Zoro's wounds. Mihawk, however, knew Zoro was merely unconscious. He had held back. Boy. What is your goal? Mihawk turned his gaze towards Luffy. This boy. Chosen by Shanks. To be king of the pirates. Luffy declared loudly, facing the world's strongest swordsman without flinching. Humphrey. That is a path even more arduous than surpassing me. Mihawk replied, a slight curve appearing on his lips. Just as expected. A boy chosen by Shanks should be like this. I don't care. I'm gonna be it anyway. Luffy finished, then stuck his tongue out and made a face at Mihawk. He's alive. Just passed out. Usopp's shout drew Luffy's attention back to Zoro. Rowan, the crimson black light in his eyes softening slightly, also looked towards Zoro. Big bro, say something. Johnny and Yozaku pleaded tearfully. Clank. With his last ounce of strength, Zoro raised his only remaining sword, Wado Akamaji, high into the air. Luffy. Rowan. Can you hear me? Zoro gasped, exhausted and severely injured, but his voice remained firm. Yeah. Luffy yelled back. We hear you. Rowan replied, his expression solemn. Even an awakened king would show full respect to a man like Zoro. Sorry. For making you worry. Zoro held the sword aloft. If I don't become the world's strongest swordsman, it would cause you guys trouble, right? Cough cough. He couldn't finish before a racking cough shook his body due to his severe injuries. Big bro. Don't talk anymore. Your wounds are reopening. Johnny and Yozaku cried out anxiously. But Zoro pushed through the pain, continuing. I will never lose again. Zoro covered his eyes with his free hand, tears streaming down his face. This incredibly tough man, who could endure 20 days of starvation without showing weakness, shed tears of humiliation after suffering such a crushing defeat. It also signified Zoro's ambition would continue. Until I defeat him. And become the world's greatest swordsman. I absolutely will never lose again. Zoro roared. Mihawk's lips curved slightly further. Do you have a problem with that? King of the pirates. Sky Sovereign. Zoro yelled defiantly. Shishishi. Nope. Luffy grinned widely, overjoyed. Rowan didn't answer verbally. He simply smiled, then the crimson black light in his eyes flared intensely as he turned back to face Mihawk. His actions would be his answer to Zoro. Sky Sovereign. Is that your title? Quite arrogant. Mihawk commented. You are not a swordsman. What business do you have with me? Mihawk asked calmly. How about you do me a favor? Measure my disposition. Rowan replied, a confident, powerful curve to his lips. Encountering a man like Mihawk, standing at the absolute pinnacle of the seas. How could Rowan not want to gauge his own current disposition, to understand the gap between himself and such a peak powerhouse? And given Mihawk's connection to Shanks, he was the most suitable target for such a measurement. Hearing Rowan's words, and following his subtle gesture towards Luffy's hat, Mihawk understood. This young man knows about my relationship with Shanks? Then this favor, indeed, must be granted. Disposition, you say? Very well. Mihawk agreed, the crimson black light within his own hawk-like eyes beginning to flash intensely. And also, Rowan continued before Mihawk could finish. Let my comrade know what kind of power he needs to attain before he can challenge you again. Rowan laughed, and incredibly, faint arcs of crimson black lightning began to crackle around his body. Without the power of infused Conqueror's Haki, defeating Mihawk completely was impossible. Hearing this, and seeing the crimson black lightning flickering around Rowan, Mihawk's eyes suddenly narrowed. Have you been to the Grand Line? No. To the New World? Mihawk asked gravely. This young man had not only awakened Conqueror's Haki, but he also knew it could be infused into attacks, knew it was the most domineering power on these seas? Otherwise, why would he say such a thing? In the East Blue, even the first half of the Grand Line, forget Conqueror's Haki, most didn't even know about armament Haki. No, even in the New World, only a very small number of top-tier powerhouses understood the true nature of Conqueror's Haki. Never been. But my comrades and I are about to conquer it. Rowan replied boldly. Though I do not know how you learned the truth about Conqueror's Haki. Since you know, what is the point of displaying such power to that young swordsman? This power is innate. Without the aptitude, it cannot be awakened. Mihawk stated, his sharp eyes fixed on Rowan. Aside from Rowan with his system, even Mihawk couldn't know for certain if Zoro possessed the disposition of a king. Therefore, Mihawk's earlier words to Zoro, telling him to get stronger and surpass him, referred purely to swordsmanship. Without infused Conqueror's Haki, even if Zoro's skill eventually equaled Mihawk's, he would have no chance of truly winning. Mihawk had simply intended to plant a seed, to see if this young swordsman's skill might one day reach a level where they could spar for enjoyment, allowing Mihawk to briefly alleviate his boredom. Of course, in such a spar, Mihawk wouldn't use his own infused Conqueror's Haki. He will awaken such power, of course. Rowan stated, a supremely confident curve to his lips. He is, after all, a man acknowledged by me, Rowan. Rowan laughed boldly. The wreckage of Don Krieg's ship around them seemed to tremble and crumble slightly under the pressure of his aura. Standing upon the sea, empowered by his Born of the Sea trait, and unleashing his Conqueror's Haki. Even Mihawk could not ignore Rowan now. Mihawk's pupils constricted sharply. This is already capable of causing tangible physical effects on the surroundings. After awakening, Conqueror's Haki initially only affected weaker wills, causing them to faint. With further strengthening, it could exert physical force on the environment. Eventually, one could learn to infuse it into attacks, and finally, complete mastery of infused Conqueror's Haki granted the power to become one of the absolute strongest on the seas. This young man before him was already walking the correct path. The path towards the absolute pinnacle of this world. And Mihawk wasn't sure if his sharp eyes were deceiving him. But in this young man, he thought he saw a faint shadow of the man whose execution he had once witnessed. The Pirate King. Extreme confidence, extreme dominance. Just standing there, he seemed like the radiant center of the sea itself. Although this young man's Haki was far weaker than the Pirate King's, the potential, the nascent form, was unmistakably there. The weakest sea, the East Blue, has produced such a young man. Waves stirred within Mihawk's usually calm heart. Zoro is the man who will become the world's greatest swordsman, Rowan declared, laughing boldly. Zoro, still covering his eyes, felt fresh tears flow uncontrollably. Rowan. He would never lose again. Humphrey. A genuine smile touched Mihawk's lips. Interesting. The next moment. VMM. Boom. Rowan's eyes narrowed intensely. The crimson black light within them solidified, erupting outwards like a raging storm. Boom. Mihawk's hawk-like eyes narrowed in response. His own Conqueror's Haki roared forth to meet the challenge. Two storms of pure will collided mid-air. Crackle. Boom. Crimson black lightning tore through the atmosphere, two opposing forces clashing violently. A tempestuous vortex of power erupted, centered between Rowan and Mihawk, raging outwards. Ah! Luffy, standing closest to the clash, was instantly blown away by the sheer force of the colliding Haki storms. Chapter 46, amidst the yelling, Luffy immediately used his rubber powers, stretching his arms to grab onto the Baraties railing and pull himself back aboard the restaurant ship. Rumble. The terrifying storm generated by the clashing Haki lifted the wreckage of Don Krieg's galleon right out of the sea, tossing debris high into the air. Thump. 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 As the tempest swept past, the remaining Krieg pirate grunts' pupils constricted in terror. Their eyes rolled back, and they all collapsed, unconscious. Then, they too were swept up by the raging vortex and blown away. High above, even the clouds began to recede, frantically pulling away from the space directly above Rowan and Mihawk. This was a clash between two kings. Nothing, not even the clouds, could presume to remain above them. Conqueror's Haki. Clash. What's happening? Sanji braced himself against the buffeting winds, staring wide-eyed at the epicenter of the collision, cold sweat dripping down his face. Many of the chefs around him couldn't withstand the impact either and had fainted. What is this power? Conqueror's Haki. So this is the power of Conqueror's Haki? Truly astounding. Zeph, who had heard legends but never witnessed it firsthand, stared with undisguised shock. Conqueror's Haki? Sanji murmured the term. Conqueror's Haki. So, it's not just for knocking out weaklings. It can be used as raw power too? Is this what you wanted to show me, Rowan? Zoro gritted his teeth, his body shielded by Usopp, Johnny, and Yozaku from the worst of the Tempest's effects due to his injuries. But a feral grin spread across Zoro's face. This power. He would obtain it too. With power like this, he could challenge Hawkeye's again, right? As for whether he could obtain it, Zoro had no doubts. Rowan said he could, so he would. Otherwise, how could he live up to Rowan's acknowledgement? Ha! The storm gradually subsided. The intense crimson black light in both Rowan's and Mihawk's eyes slowly faded. Splash! Splash! The wreckage of Don Krieg's ship rained back down into the sea. Astonishing Haki. To possess such disposition without even having sailed the Grand Line. Sky Sovereign Rowan. I shall remember that name. Mihawk stated, a hint of surprise in his eyes. Only after clashing could one truly gauge the depth of another's. Conqueror's Haki. This young man's disposition felt far beyond what someone of his age and experience should possess. There were undoubtedly individuals on the Grand Line with Conqueror's Haki far stronger than this young man's. But considering his youth, the fact he hadn't yet entered into the Grand Line, and had trained hockey of this level solely within the East Blue, the weakest sea, this young man's potential was limitless. Furthermore, Mihawk felt he saw in this young man a faint shadow of the Pirate King. Although this young man's hockey was far weaker than the Pirate King's, the resemblance, the potential, was definitely there. The weakest sea, the East Blue, has produced such a young man. For the first time in a long while, even Mihawk felt a tremor of genuine surprise ripple through him. Clashed Conqueror's hockey with Pirate Faction iconic figure, Warlord Hawkeye's Mihawk, causing slight mental fluctuation, Faction Fortune. Apex Gold, Hidden Effect triggered. Plundering a portion of target's fortune, awakened. Armament Hockey, Observation Hockey. A series of notifications, visible only to Rowan, appeared. And the gains didn't stop there. Your word significantly increased bond with Zoro. Trait equipping progress increased, demonic physique. Deep Purple, equipping complete. Rowan looked at the notifications, his eyes flashing. The completion of demonic physiques. Equipping was already part of his plan. But he hadn't expected that clashing Conqueror's hockey could trigger Faction Fortunes, Apex Gold, Hidden Effect. Causing a mental fluctuation in an iconic pirate faction figure through a hockey clash allowed him to plunder a portion of their fortune. Makes sense. After all, completely defeating such a figure allowed Faction Fortune to plunder their entire fortune. And causing mental fluctuation during a hockey clash could grant a tactical advantage in battle. No wonder in the original story, Conqueror's hockey users, even those who hadn't mastered infusion yet, often clashed their hockey before engaging in a final life or death struggle. However, this slight fluctuation was negligible for someone like Mihawk. He would recover completely in moments. This was only possible because Mihawk, respecting his connection to Shanks, had significantly restrained his own hockey release. Otherwise, Rowan wouldn't have appeared to be evenly matched in that clash. Shanks's connection really is useful. Although it was just a slight fluctuation, it was enough for Rowan. That tiny sliver of plundered fortune was sufficient to awaken his armament hockey and observation hockey. As expected of one of the pirate faction's top figures, second only to the emperors among the warlords. Just a tiny fraction of his fortune yielded such significant gains. This power was exactly what Rowan needed most before entering the Grand Line. Plus, Zoro's demonic physique. Deep Purple. Completed equipping at this very moment. Check. Traits. Rowan traits, superhuman physique. Deep Purple, demonic physique. Deep Purple, armament hockey. Deep Purple, observation hockey. Deep Purple, Conqueror's hockey. Pale Gold, faction fortune. Apex Gold, born of the sea. Apex Gold, Azura Aura. Special, equipping, vertical bar, anthem of courage. Special, equipping, vertical bar, sun god. Apex Gold, equipping, vertical bar. Armament hockey and observation hockey, both had reached the Deep Purple tier. Through the trait system, the moment they awakened, Rowan gained a deeper understanding of hockey. The strength of armament hockey was related to the user's physique combined with their disposition. The strength of observation hockey was related to the user's spirit and mental fortitude combined with their disposition. Rowan had already awakened Conqueror's hockey, and his disposition was constantly being enhanced by Born of the Sea. As a result, his Conqueror's hockey was already strong enough to cause tangible physical effects on his surroundings. In terms of the disposition component influencing hockey strength, Rowan certainly didn't lack it. However, the physique component required for armament hockey strength was currently only at the Deep Purple level, from the superhuman physique trait. Therefore, Rowan's current armament hockey trait was also ranked Deep Purple. Furthermore, Rowan received new information regarding the upgrade conditions for physique-related traits. Below the Pale Gold tier, the rank of physique traits was still somewhat linked to directly demonstrated combat power. But at the Pale Gold tier and above, the rank of physique traits became more closely tied to stamina. After all, the minimum threshold for a Pale Gold combat trait was equivalent to the strength of a Marine Headquarters Vice Admiral. Powerhouses at that level almost universally possessed strong armament hockey. No matter how much one trained their physique, they were still carbon-based life forms. Except for special cases like Big Mom with her iron balloon ability, or unique races like giants. How could other strong individuals, relying solely on their physical bodies, without using hockey, devil fruits, or techniques like iron body, possibly exert strength equivalent to or greater than a vice admiral? Consider Garp the Fist, one of the absolute strongest individuals on the seas. In the original story, when caught off guard while sleeping, not using hockey or iron body, he could still be injured by Morgan's axe. Therefore, from the gold tier onwards, The key factor determining the rank of physique type traits was the amount of stamina they provided. In the One Piece power system, stamina was the foundation of everything. Whether it was Haki or Devil Fruit powers, the fuel driving these abilities came from the user's stamina. Like Luffy in the original story, once his stamina was depleted, he couldn't use Haki or his Devil Fruit powers anymore. Essentially, stamina was the fuel for powers like Haki and Devil Fruits. So, the subsequent upgrades for physique-type traits primarily depended on the amount of stamina they contained. For example, if the stamina provided allowed the user to exert Haki or Devil Fruit powers at the minimum Marine Vice Admiral level, Pale Gold, then the physique trait itself would be ranked Pale Gold. If it provided enough stamina to exert powers at the minimum Marine Admiral level, Apex Gold, then the physique trait would be ranked Apex Gold. Very straightforward and easy to understand. Rowan nodded. But Rowan's gains weren't finished yet. Identical type traits detected: superhuman physique, deep purple; demonic physique, deep purple. Automatic fusion initiated, fusion complete. Acquired: superhuman demonic physique, deep purple. Superhuman demonic physique, deep purple, possesses digestive capabilities surpassing superhuman physique, deep purple, allowing rapid absorption of vast nutrients for self-strengthening. Furthermore, no matter how extreme the training or severe the damage to muscles and bones, can utilize absorbed nutrients to recover completely at a speed surpassing demonic physique, deep purple, consequently growing even stronger. The two physique traits had fused. Just as I thought. Superhuman physique and demonic physique are perfectly complementary. After fusion, Rowan's digestive ability now surpassed even Luffy's base. Superhuman physique, and his ability to repair damaged muscles and bones through training surpassed even Zoro's base. Demonic physique. Furthermore, because the demonic physique was acquired through direct equipping from Zoro, its inherent quality, likely above base threshold, similar to Luffy's, was merged as well. Now, Rowan's superhuman demonic physique only needed 5 more base deep purple materials to evolve to the Apex Purple tier, physique enhanced. Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, trait activated. Armament Haki strengthened, Armament Haki upgraded to Apex Purple tier. Another notification screen, visible only to Rowan, appeared. Ordinarily, even if someone's physique improved, they would still need their disposition to increase and undergo dedicated training to strengthen their armament Haki. But thanks to the Born of the Sea trait, Rowan's disposition was constantly being digested and perfectly controlled. The trait allowed him to directly enhance his Haki. Therefore, as soon as Rowan's physical strength, stamina capacity, increased, his armament Haki strength increased correspondingly. Unlike others who needed arduous training. Truly, the ultimate Haki training cheat code. Looking at the armament Haki Apex Purple trait, Rowan felt extremely satisfied with. Born of the Sea. This was Rowan's first Apex Purple trait. Below the gold tier for combat traits, armament Haki was incredibly powerful. After all, it was a power that only became commonplace in the New World. Even though Rowan's superhuman demonic physique, deep purple, was currently still ranked deep purple, the corresponding armament Haki now displayed combat power at the Apex Purple level. However, once combat traits reached the pale gold tier, Vice Admiral threshold, the rank of physique traits would likely align more closely with the armament Haki rank. Because powerhouses at that level almost universally possessed armament Haki. At this moment, Rowan had acquired the most crucial piece for conquering the Grand Line, armament Haki. With armament Haki unlocked, Rowan's strategic thinking became more active. Before entering the Grand Line and confronting the Warlord Crocodile, there was one more. Devil Fruit. That might be worth acquiring, the Logia type. Smoke Fruit. Its user, Captain Smoker of the Logetown Marine Branch. Rowan's eyes glinted. While the Smoke Fruit was considered low tier among Logias, it was still a Logia. Possessing this fruit would give him more options when dealing with Crocodile. In the original story, Luffy's victory over Crocodile relied heavily on plot armor. Rowan preferred to hold his destiny firmly in his own hands. Simply by being near Mihawk, he had plundered a minuscule amount of fortune, which triggered the awakening of his armament and observation Haki. While Crocodile couldn't compare to Mihawk, he was still one of the 7 warlords, an iconic figure of the pirate faction. By thoroughly defeating him and plundering his entire fortune, Rowan wondered just how much benefit the faction fortune, Apex Gold, trait would provide. Rowan eagerly anticipated finding out. Although he had awakened armament and observation Haki, and his armament Haki had even reached Apex Purple due to the physique enhancement. Thanks to the Strongest trait system. And born of the sea. Apex gold. This entire process had completed almost instantaneously. Rowan composed himself and looked towards Mihawk. Thank you for this, Hawkeye's Mihawk. Rowan said with a smile. Although Mihawk had acted primarily out of respect for Shanks, without him, Rowan wouldn't have finished equipping Zoro's demonic physique trait. Nor would he have awakened his armament and observation Haki. Since Mihawk had shown him face, Rowan wouldn't begrudge a simple thank you. I did not expect to encounter young people like you in the East Blue. I look forward to meeting you again on the Grand Line. Mihawk replied with a faint smile, assuming Rowan was thanking him for measuring his disposition and showing the young swordsman the nature of the sea's most domineering power. He had been barred for far too long since Shanks lost his arm. Providing some nourishment for these budding sprouts of the new era, perhaps it would make the future more interesting. With that, Mihawk turned to leave. Hey! Hawkeyes! Weren't you here to take my head? A furious roar suddenly halted Mihawk's departure. To take the head of me, Don Krieg, the overlord of the East Blue. Seeing Mihawk interacting only with Rowan's group and completely ignoring him, the ruler of the East Blue, Krieg, whose pride had already been wounded by Rowan, erupted in rage. That was my original intention. However, I've had my fun. I'm going back to sleep now. Mihawk replied dismissively, not even turning around. You may have had your fun, but I've been taking a beating this whole time. Before you go back, die. Krieg roared, deploying all the cannons hidden within his golden armor. Such an ignorant man. Mihawk sighed, feeling no goodwill towards such a fool who didn't know his place. After his interactions with Zoro and Rowan, Mihawk now lacked even the slightest interest in cutting down such a weakling who couldn't recognize his own limitations. With a single, effortless swing of his black blade, Yoru, Mihawk detonated all the incoming cannonballs and shells. Then, his figure flickered and vanished without a trace. Humphrey. Running away? Krieg spat contemptuously. PFFT. A sharp, derisive chuckle cut through the air, making veins bulge on Krieg's forehead. Brat. What are you laughing at? Krieg glared murderously at Rowan. This brat. Earlier, using that strange power, had made even him hesitate to look directly, and knocked out his subordinates. But a cruel smile spread across Krieg's face. How could a human cut a massive ship with just a sword? The Hawkeyes must have used the power of one of those legendary devil fruits. And that strange power you and Hawkeyes used. That must be a devil fruit ability too, right? Ability users like that are dime a dozen on the Grand Line. That Zeph guy managed to survive a year on the Grand Line, he must know how to deal with ability users like you. Once I get his logbook, I'll conquer the Grand Line again. Krieg looked at Rowan, who seemed less imposing now that his hockey had subsided, spread his arms wide, and roared with laughter. And you were foolish too. After using up all that power earlier, you must be completely exhausted now, right? Krieg glared at Rowan, his expression turning savage. PFFT. Ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Hearing Krieg's words, Rowan couldn't hold back any longer. He burst into laughter, tears streaming down his face. Krieg was just as idiotic in the original story. But to think, even after witnessing the clash of Conqueror's hockey between me and Mihawk, this fool still lumps Conqueror's hockey together with devil fruit abilities. A frog in a well. Chapter 47. So, what exactly are you laughing at? Krieg roared, thoroughly enraged, pointing his arsenal of weapons directly at Rowan. Ha ha ha. Sorry. You're just too good at making me laugh. Rowan replied, wiping away tears of mirth from the corner of his eye. But if you want to fight me, you should be prepared to lose everything. Rowan's smile slowly faded. Lose everything? Are you talking about that so-called Davy backfight game? Krieg demanded, veins bulging on his forehead. Making him laugh? The words infuriated Krieg. The Davy backfight was the pirate game played between Foxy and Luffy's crew in the original story, where losers could have their comrades, pride, and even Jolly Roger stolen, losing everything precious to a pirate. It was a well-known game among pirates. What I'm talking about isn't some childish game. Rowan stated, looking at Krieg with his intimidating villain expression. Old man Zeph. If I take out this idiot, can Luffy's 1 year of work here be cancelled? Rowan called out, looking towards Zeph. I couldn't ask for more. If that brat worked here for a year, he'd probably destroy my entire restaurant. Zeph replied, his eyes narrowing slightly. He also wanted to see what capabilities this, Conqueror's hockey, user truly possessed. Alright then. Luffy. Zoro. Usopp. Nami. And you too, Sanji. Watch closely. This is the true power of hockey. Rowan declared, turning back to face Krieg, a confident, powerful curve returning to his lips. Hockey? Luffy and Zoro immediately focused their attention. Hey, hey. Why are you including me? Sanji protested verbally, but his eyes were glued intently on Rowan. There's a limit to looking down on people. Brat. Krieg roared, unleashing his entire arsenal of cannons towards Rowan. Bomb. A massive explosion erupted, engulfing Rowan in dust and smoke. Humphrey. Serves you right. Krieg laughed triumphantly. Hey, so-called overlord of the East Blue, is this toy all you rely on? Krieg's pupils constricted as he stared intently into the settling dust. Rowan stood there, completely unharmed, having blocked the entire barrage with just his outstretched palm. This application of armament hockey worked on the same principle as the three admirals blocking Whitebeard's shockwaves during the Summit War. Rowan then casually brushed non-existent dust off his clothes and began walking towards Krieg. With armament hockey, the dust hadn't actually even touched him. But the gesture looked cool. Huge. Rowan. Luffy, fulfilling his usual role of providing maximum emotional support for his comrades, yelled out excitedly. Zoro, Sanji, and Usopp stared wide-eyed as well. Nami covered her mouth, gazing blankly at Rowan, who seemed to radiate light like the sun at the center of the sea. Armament hockey can become armor, for defense. Rowan explained calmly as he walked towards Krieg, who was now breaking out in a cold sweat. It can also, Rowan continued. Whoosh. With a powerful push off the deck, Rowan instantly appeared directly in front of Krieg. Armament. Rowan raised his right fist. The next moment, VMM. Clang. Accompanied by a metallic sound, Rowan's right fist was enveloped in armament hockey, turning jet black. Armament hockey, hardening. Don't get too cocky, brat. If you wanna fight, then try this. Krieg snarled, revealing a cruel smile. With a swift motion, he donned a spiked steel cape that bristled with needle-sharp points. Hey! That's cowardly. Sanji yelled upon seeing the armor. But the next moment, he was left utterly speechless. Punch through anything. Rowan finished his sentence, his black fist descending forcefully. Crack. The steel cape, composed of countless sharp spikes, shattered like brittle candy upon impact. Whoosh. The blackened fist continued unabated, slamming violently into Krieg's horrified face. Bang. With a sickening thud, Krieg collapsed heavily to the deck. Crackle. The remaining wreckage of Krieg's ship beneath him instantly buckled and splintered from the force, the impact even causing the surrounding seawater to churn and splash violently. Sanji stared blankly at the scene. Krieg's face now sported a deep, concave fist imprint. His eyes had rolled white. He was completely silent. The overlord of the East Blue had been defeated, instantly. Blunder. Sanji and the other chefs stared, dumbfounded, at Don Krieg lying motionless at Rowan's feet. The supposed overlord of the East Blue, the great pirate with a 17 million Bailey bounty, defeated instantly? That impenetrable cloak, forged entirely from steel spikes, shattered by a mere fist? Was this man even human? Huge. Luffy roared with excitement. Hockey. Is this the power of hockey? Zoro muttered, struggling to push his heavily injured body upright. This power can only truly be grasped on the Grand Line. It's exhilarating. A fierce, beast-like grin spread across Zoro's face. Amazing. Usopp breathed, completely stunned. How could a human fist punch straight through steel and remain completely unharmed? Rowan. Nami whispered, covering her mouth as she gazed at Rowan, who seemed to almost glow at the center of the chaotic scene. So strong. Don Krieg, despite his reputation and 17 million Bailey bounty as the overlord of the East Blue, couldn't even withstand a single blow from Rowan. He was taken out in an instant. Arlong's bounty was only 20 million Bailey. Even if Arlong was stronger than Krieg, surely not strong enough to defeat him with a single punch like that, right? At that moment, remembering Rowan's earlier words to her, Nami pressed her lips together tightly. Captain. Jin cried out in horror. The invincible Captain Krieg defeated by this man with a single punch? Blunder. Rowan commanded inwardly. A purple light, visible only to Rowan, separated from Krieg's body and flowed into Rowan. Krieg possessed one deep purple trait related to brute strength. Rowan didn't bother examining the details, he immediately converted it. Krieg's combat prowess relied heavily on external equipment, his only notable personal attribute was his raw physical power. After conversion, Rowan obtained one deep purple strength type upgrade material. A decent gain. Gurgle. Under the horrified gazes of Jin, Sanji, and the other chefs. Don Krieg, the supposed overlord who had rampaged across the East Blue relying on brute force and weaponry, his superhumanly robust body suddenly began to deflate. His prominent muscles rapidly atrophied, leaving him utterly powerless.